legally distinct Creative Commons royalty-free Filmation Masters of the Universe tribute music. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Geek the F Out. I'm Lucha Johnny.
And I was about to say Ensign Kayla. I'm Kayla.
I am hearing an echo.
Oh, I don't hear one.
Oh, wait.
Check my settings.
No, it's because it went live in the other tab. I had the YouTube page up in the other tab and it went live.
Anyways, hello everyone. Welcome to Geek the F Out. We are here to talk about MOTU Revelation Part 1, and we are joined by two esteemed guests. We have the first person who we told that we were doing this was like, I absolutely need to be there, and that is none other than Brick Something. Welcome, welcome. I muted you, so FYI, you're going to have to unmute yourself. Okay. Do you want to say something? You want to say hi?
Yeah, I guess so. Hi. No, yes, thank you for indulging me, because I really want to talk Revelation, because I have thoughts and it means a lot to me and my channel. So that's all.
Yeah. And then we have Allison Troy, Retro Toy Princess over here. Also, big MOTU fan.
Hello.
Welcome. Well, yeah. So if anyone doesn't know, I have not watched Revelation or anything MOTU before. So this was my first jump into the MOTU-verse, as I call it in my head. Because I know there's, She-Ra and Princess of Power and all that stuff. But yeah, so this is my first time watching anything, and so it is my watch, everyone else's rewatch of the show, and RTP. Yeah, so before we get into it, should we say hi to the chat?
Yes, but before we do that, I want to give myself a pat on the back, the old Barry Horowitz, because I freaking eyeballed that Grayskull Green for our names before I put the Grayskull Green background on the stream, and I'm impressed with myself. That's really close. I pretty much nailed that. So
yeah, you did a great job. It looks great.
Barry Horowitz, pat on the back.
My favorite color is green. I also did Cringer eye makeup. So my favorite color is green, and I was like, well, I love Cringer, so I'm going to do Cringer eye makeup.
But yes, let us
say
hi to the chat. Thanos Copter is bummed that he can't be here, but he'll check the replay.
Watch the
and
replay.
I think he said he can check. He'll be here Monday.
Okay, cool.
Chef Matey is here.
Matey.
Shiny Plastic Chris. Stanley's Toy Channel. Can't do MOTU stream without Eldor himself, the Master Versal Toy Hunter.
Yeah.
Yesterday's podcast.
Derek.
We're here.
Hey, Derek.
That's good. Yeah.
We're
I was
here.
waiting for the double up. I was waiting to see Derek Hoover's name pop up too. Let's see who else. Oh, Brick Something is here.
Hey, that's me.
That's from your channel. Yeah.
Me.
That's just telling everybody to come over here to the GTFO.
The Ryandel Fan Club is here.
Which I think I know who it is, but I won't say.
Well, three of my suspects are here right now on screen, so but that doesn't mean it couldn't be one of the three of you.
I mean, I'm a card-carrying member, but I don't have.
If you want to, I asked you out here today.
Oh, and we also have another co-host that will probably be doing this the whole time because he was sleeping 5 minutes ago, and now he wants all the attention.
Later,
Okay.
What's his MOTU name? It's gonna have to be Bassator, right?
Bassator, yes. That's perfect.
Vactor is here. Hello, Vactor. He was supposed to join us
Vactor.
tonight, but unfortunately can't. But he's here in the chat.
Be here Monday, though.
Kenzo's Creations.
Kenzo.
Allison Troy pulling double duty, also in the chat.
Okay.
And thanks, Vactor.
Bassator.
There we go.
Well, welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Johnny, you did great with the background and the music and everything. I'm always so impressed by that because I can't do any of that stuff. And I've told Johnny, and I think I've said this on the stream before, I could never have done a channel without him because yes, I'm giving you attention because I don't know any of this like technical. I don't even know what the term to use for it. So yeah, very, very grateful for that. I am good at the social media and
yes,
that stuff. And
there would be no Instagram or Threads or Twitter posts without Kayla because I'm awful at it. Figuratively speaking, just stopped in.
Hello. Welcome. So before we get how the show is gonna go, we're gonna do like little background for everyone's history with the MOTU verse, and you just do a little bit of that, and then we'll do episode by episode. Oh, Allison is gone. Hopefully she'll be back.
Yeah, I don't know if you were here. She said before they've been having rolling brownouts, so she may be popping in and out. But if she disconnects, she'll be back as soon as she can.
Okay. I just heard her come back in.
There we go.
There she is.
Just, rolling brownouts, whatever.
Yeah, blame it on that. Blame it on that.
Yes.
That's true. I wish it weren't.
Yeah, so we'll go episode by episode. We won't go like scene by scene like we normally do, but I'll just kind of do a quick summary and we'll, talk about each one. And then I have lots of questions at the end, so we're going to have lots of stuff to talk about in a good way. Like, it's all good stuff. Like, I am so curious to know so much more about this universe. So like I said before, I haven't seen anything in the MOTU verse before. This is my first the revelation is popping my cherry, as we like to say. And the only thing I have is toys, which I have a bunch now. I have Motherboard, which I know she was mentioned in this part, but I think she comes up in the second part, which I haven't seen the second part yet because I purposely wanted to wait for after this stream so I could kind of maybe do some predictions. So yeah, I have some MOTU toys and some She-Ra, Tila. I have Sorceress. I have Mossman. I have Scareglow. I have Cosmic Skelly. I'm not at home right now, obviously, so I can't show them off. But I'll get into it more later. But it was kind of cool that like even without seeing anything before, I still knew some things and like knew some Easter eggs, which was really cool. And it was literally just from like what I know about the toys. So it was pretty cool. So go ahead.
In chat, Stanley's toy channel has an excellent point where he says toys are a wonderful start. And it's really important, especially for you, Kayla, because you're new to this, to sort of understand for a lot of us, MOTU started with toys. Yeah. There wasn't a cartoon when it first started. The cartoon came a little later. So
oh really? I don't think I knew that.
So there were mini comics. That's the only way we knew what the story was in the beginning. Coloring books, etc. And that was how we knew the story before there was a cartoon. So this is, as you start digging into it and you find people who like certain quote unquote lore, certain histories and whatnot, you'll start hearing things like pre-filmation mini comics. And the segue here for me interrupting you to say all that
fine.
Is Kevin Smith and the writers on Revelations did a really good job of pulling from all of these different lores. Which is one of my favorite things about Revelations, is it pulls from, if you like the mini comics history, they put some stuff in there. If you like the movie, they put some stuff in there from that. So for you, because this is your first MOTU, I think it's going to be fun when you start digging a little deeper into it, because you're going to start seeing where all of the threads came from and the different histories. Anyway.
Cool. That's good to know. I thought I was doing it wrong the whole time. I thought... I was like, I feel weird having these toys and haven't watched anything, but yeah, I guess I'm doing it right. Yeah, Kenzo said I'm doing it right. So I feel better now. I feel validated. So let's go around. Let's just do a very quick before we get into the episodes, because we have 5 episodes to cover. And like I said, I have lots of questions. Everyone give their little background with the MOTU verse, the toys, the shows, all of that. Johnny, my co-host, I know is a huge fan. So you go first, and then Allison, then Brick.
I do not remember life before MOTU because I seriously, I don't. I was probably 3 or 4 years old in 83, 84 when I started getting toys for Christmas. I had Castle Grayskull, and I had I'm pretty sure I had all of the original 8-pack, because I know I had a regular He-Man and Skeletor and whoever else was on that. I don't remember the details of that, but
you're in the right company tonight, though.
I had so many. I had Castle Grayskull, had Snake Mountain, had Stridor and Night Stalker, and just like if it was MOTU, I probably had it up until like the later waves. Hordak and Evil Horde. I had She-Ra figures too because I loved Masters that much. Like there has not been a time in my life where I don't remember MOTU. And then there was a big gap until Classics. When Classics came out, the only reason I found out about Classics is because I discovered 2000X was on DVD. I bought the 2000X series on DVD, and they had the ad in there for the first Classics He-Man, Masters of the Universe Classics, and that's when I got back into collecting the figures again. I skipped 2000X entirely just because it wasn't on my radar, and that's when I really fell back into the fandom with the start of Classics in 2008. But yeah, I legitimately do not remember a life without MOTU.
Yeah, which is funny because I don't think I even really knew about MOTU until, I don't know, maybe after college. I don't really remember. Like I had probably seen it, but I didn't really know what it was. Yeah. Okay.
I
Allison,
remember. Sorry, one more thing.
Go ahead.
I remember
You're
having renting Secret of the Sword on VHS, the He-Man She-Ra movie, and like I wasn't allowed to touch any buttons on the VCR except play. Luckily, the VCR had an auto rewind feature, so I had to let it play to the end of the tape.
Wait, that was
And
like a rule because was it because they thought you were going to record or something?
Well, as a kid, I liked to push buttons, and I pushed buttons so much I broke stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
So
is that an actual T-shirt, Kenzo?
I don't recall them, but so I would wait until the tape hit the end and auto rewound to the beginning, and then I just hit play again, so the tape would start over. But I watched that VHS movie a lot.
That probably means whenever you hear that pop song from The Secret of the Sword, it really takes you back.
I love the She-Ra theme. I love all that Filmation music. Like I have the soundtrack for Filmation He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Like that it's quirky and it's great.
Yeah.
But
I think that's a perfect way to explain a lot of MOTU. It's quirky and it's great.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like not even, well, at least this wasn't even that quirky. Not as quirky as I thought it was going to be. There's definitely some puns and some alliteration and some dad jokes, but I don't know. It seemed like a pretty normal cartoon to me.
Filmation's quirky.
Okay.
Particularly
Allison?
Filmation is quirky.
Well, let's see. So you're going to hear a lot of this tonight, and I apologize, but I'm literally sort of in MOTU month over on my channel. So like a lot of this is going to be on my recent video I released. So a few weeks ago, I did a coloring video of the Tila 1983, no, it was 82, 83, the Earl McCarthy card back. I found it in black and white. Thank you, Adam at Battle Ram blog, for being so wondrous. But I told sort of this story. Like, I wasn't impressed with MOTU when I first saw it. It was my brother's stuff. The toys looked big and clunky. They looked like baby toys to me because I was I don't know, like 8, 9. I was so old and worldly. It's also the summer Little Orphan Annie came out, the movie, and I, as a ginger who was sarcastic and sang like, you don't just start singing in the middle of the grocery store and doing a dance. I did. So I related. But then I saw Tila and I was like, wow, she's like bonking Beastman with like a sword or something. I'm like, she's cool. I want her. And then Zodak was cool because he was very Star Wars. So I saw them on the back of the 8-back card that my brother had, which was He-Man, Skeletor, Stratos, Man-at-Arms, Tila, Zodak, and Beastman. Johnny. And circle it all back for you. So it was really,
Thanks.
and Tila and Zodak were my first 2 figures. I got those for my birthday, like probably 83, since they came out at the end of 82. Like that was, those were my like with my birthday money, I bought those. There's obviously other presents. We had just entered my dad making a lot of money. So MOTU hit at the right time because there were a lot of toys to buy. But those were my first 2 figures. So for me, it's always Tila and Zodak. Which is why I loved Revelations, obviously, with all the Tila-ness. So yeah, but and like then I moved to Princess of Power because She-Ra was a little cooler, in my opinion, than Tila was at that point. Because I'm not a huge fan of Filmation, and I felt like Filmation kind of toned Tila down in some ways. But I like She-Ra a lot. So MOTU, and that was sort of where I was when I stopped playing with toys and became a teenager. So yeah, MOTU, Princess of Power, that was sort of, Star Wars was where it began, and MOTU, Princess of Power is where toys ended for me. So, so it's,
Gotcha.
Sort of a big deal. And obviously, I'm on the internet talking about MOTU and Princess of Power all the time. So obviously it's still a thing.
Mm-hmm. we love the new Apple things.
Sorry.
You're fine. I just did one too. Especially because I literally just updated my computer. Okay, speaking of Brick, it's your turn.
So MOTU. When I was conscious, the house was all about Star Wars. My brother is 5 years older than me, so he had already kind of like pushed mom and dad to buy those figures. And so shortly after that, G.I. Joe came out, and that became sort of our shared thing. So between the Kenner Star Wars and G.I. Joe, that was what we were supposed to collect. And my parents had very clear rules. Like, yeah, that's what we're getting you. That's it. So anything else was like kind of off limits. Don't even think about it. However, there were aunts and uncles, particularly one aunt, rest in peace, who would often, she was the youngest sister. She was my mom's youngest sister, often kind of like take us to the mall. And my brother taught me this trick that you could kind of convince her to maybe get you some of the other toys that we weren't allowed to get. And so he came home once.
There's
with
always that one relative that will do that.
So he came home with a He-Man. I was like, what is that? Like, it's the classic stuff you see on all those documentaries about how they designed the figures. Because, Kenner Star Wars 3.75, 5 POA literally stood like this. Then G.I. Joe 3.75 O-ring. Ooh, they can do this. Ooh. And then all of a sudden, this like bigger 5.5-inch, ridiculously muscular, half naked dude comes out, and you're like, what is that? And so, of course, like my brother can't just have all the fun. And hey Tita, can I get one of those too? So I got Skeletor, and that was my first figure. Loved it.
Wow.
We didn't get a ton after that until my 6th. It was like shortly after that, my 6th birthday, August 82. And here's the weird thing. I never asked for this. I got to ask my brother. He must have asked. He must have convinced my parents. Like, and they like, what should we get your brother?
I'll do this now.
Yeah. So I feel
Motut
like
Manut.
Motut Manut. He was like, I think, I'm assuming he convinced them to get me Castle Grayskull. It was a joint gift. I remember it was like him, my grandparents, and my aunts and uncles. So I think that was probably what happened. I still remember. They were like, okay, you're done with the gifts. Great. Oh, by the way, can you go grab that thing behind the couch? It was one of those. It was this giant box. Epic. So I still remember it. Love that thing. We didn't have many figures for it for a while. But anyway, that's my history. And then didn't really get anything for a while. We didn't, like I said, we didn't collect. I had that aunt's son, my cousin, was 5 years younger than me. That was his deal. Like, you'd go to his house and he had Masters of the Universe. So I just go and play with him, and he had everything, if not, yeah, I think it's pretty darn complete. And he still has it. He's your neighbor, actually, Allison, in your area. Oh. And anyway, I love those toys. Love the vintage Masters of the Universe through him. Grew up, fast forward, again, didn't really get much. I loved the Mike Young Productions cartoon, which you'll hear referred to as 2000X. That like the way sort of Allison described it, kind of took bits from the Filmation, some other things that were planned originally for the toy line, and kind of blended it into kind of a newer version of the story. And some of that ends up here. I was really intrigued by that, but it was really hard to watch just because of the way they aired it. So I couldn't really follow it, and I didn't have cable at the time. And then eventually, once like the internet was fast enough, I figured out how to download that and just went through it and loved it. Then MOTU Classics, I was able to, I think it was, I forgot what year at Comic-Con, maybe 2008 or 2009, where they're making a big deal about like, hey, like check out this at the Mattel booth. There was a big display, and I was like, what are these? Like, they're making Masters of the Universe figures again. And again, just like going back to my kid life, they went from 5.5 inch to like 6.5 inch, almost 7 inch. And I'm just like, what are these things?
Way over average.
I know. And keep rubbing it in, Kayla. And then those, I'm sorry, I'll end quickly, but those were all designed by the Mythic Legions folks, right? The 4 Horsemen. Yeah, they designed and sculpted it and worked on that whole line. And I was just like, what is this? And that all of that is important to me because it's kind of where I landed today. And I'll just share this last thing. When Revelation came out, why I said in the intro why this matters to me. One of the reasons is because the very first video on my channel was actually about King Grayskull from Masterverse. The very first video was about that figure. And part of the reason I was motivated to start a channel and talk about that figure in particular was because of all the like other sketchy coverage I was seeing about this show and that figure in particular.
Just call a spade, racist coverage.
Because that's an interesting term. But yes. But yeah, just that like people were hating on the show before the show came out. People were finding all sorts of reasons, including the changing of King Grayskull. And so anyway,
not my Grayskull.
That's where I'm at. And I love this shirt. Again, to go back to that 6-year-old gift, this was a sticker at the bottom of on the floor of the Castle Grayskull playset that Super 7 turned into a t-shirt. And
that's cool. That's awesome. Love it. So I have a couple questions before we get started. I wanted to ask everyone if you didn't just rewatch it now. Oh my God.
That was from yesterday's podcast, real quick. Just that's the 40th birthday cake.
No way!
That's amazing.
His wife Shauna got it for him for his 40th. So.
Oh my God, that's awesome!
Amazing.
Awesome cake, great wife, obviously.
Yes, 10 stars.
I love the vines too. On the that's awesome.
That's
the brown.
cool.
That's cool.
Pretty good cake.
Very cool. So if you guys didn't just rewatch it, or I guess you can still kind of say this before the rewatch, but like any kind of like memories or first impressions from part 1 that you may have, or I don't know, just in general.
I was just glad to see animated Masters of the Universe on a screen again. Like, it's just happy to have more MOTU animated.
What about you guys?
Same, but also I kind of liked the idea of the. I know it was, some people were like, "Oh, it's a sequel to Filmation or whatever," but I really liked that. I knew that they were going to do something a little different. That we weren't. One of the things I disliked about Filmation was the end of every episode. For the most part, it was a reset where we went back. Like there were very few things that were altering. And this is how TV just was back in, especially for like a cartoon. There weren't major changes. I liked the idea we were going to get something where if somebody died on screen or somebody was wounded or something changed, that it was actually a status quo change. I know as we get into it, there are a lot of things people didn't sort of like that they did, but I liked that there was a feeling that nobody was safe. And I liked that there was this, we'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah.
But there were a few things they did that freaked people out. And I think that there was a negative reaction because people were expecting a sequel maybe to Filmation. Well, the people who had a non-disingenuous negative reaction to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on them, not the people who are just unhappy because of reasons. The people who had a negative reaction because of some of that, I think it would have helped more if there had been less of it's a sequel to Filmation rather than it's a modern MOTU thing for modern audiences. I think people probably would have had less of an intense reaction. Some of them. There are some people who are just not going to like things about it because they're stupid. And yeah, I'm sorry. Some people are stupid. But but for in this case, there were some people who had valid negative reactions because of what they expected. And I wish that hadn't have happened because what I liked was when one thing happened, I'm like, oh, we're really going to get something in this show that like we didn't get with Filmation. We didn't even get Mike Young, the 2000X stuff. We're going to get some real like, and that's sort of, you know, in classics, the bios would kill characters off. But that always felt really superficial because the bio is not actually, in my opinion, like you can disagree with me.
Yeah.
I don't consider a bio actual storytelling. There's no art to that. It's just like write some stuff out, throw it on the back of the package.
It's just like it feels like a different continuity, right? Like you have the bios are their own continuity. They're a different story than the mini comics that came with classics, than the mini comics that came with
bios
the
just
original.
Felt very fan fiction-y and poorly thought out. So I'm not going to focus on the bios at all right now. We certainly at some point we can all do a let's complain about bad things in the bios. And some people like that continuity, and I'm happy for them, but it's just very poorly, it's a very poor way of telling a story. And so for me, a lot of stuff felt gratuitous and just certain people wanted a certain hardness to it. And like, we need to go hardcore with this. So we'll have Mermista decapitate Merman.
I was wondering about that because it wasn't. It was, yeah, we'll get into it more, but it was very. It was a lot different than I was expecting me because I was expecting it to be more hardcore, but it was more heartfelt.
Yeah. So anyway, that's sort of, and I'm done. So Britt.
Okay. Go, Britt. Any memories?
Like the sequel aspect of it, like they talk in video games a lot about spiritual successors to games, and I think that's more what this is than a direct sequel to Filmation. It's like a spiritual successor to Filmation.
Which I was going to ask if this is supposed to come in a timeline compared to any of the other shows, movies, etc. that have come out.
I would say if you consider this like an unofficial Filmation sequel, it works. Like because the basic MOTU lore is pretty much the same from iteration to iteration. You know about like Prince Adam is He-Man, the Sorceress of Grayskull, Orko, Cringer, the Sorceress, and Man-at-Arms know that Adam is He-Man. No one else really does. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. doing this that Marlena does. Like Marlena's figured it out.
They always hinted
Mhm.
at that in Filmation, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Every time she
Which, like,
she rescued everyone by freeing Prince Adam, so you know.
that would suck if just one parent knows. Like, if I was the other parent, I would definitely have that reaction he had and the reaction Tila had. Like, that is very warranted. Especially being a
very
parent, I would be
I like hearing that.
"The
Yeah,
fuck?"
that's interesting to me to hear someone who was unfamiliar kind of just watch the show and think about relationships, human relationships, and how people
Mhm.
might react. And so, like,
Mhm.
that's kind of what I was curious how this would land with someone who didn't really know the lore, if they just sort of
Yeah.
communicated enough to give you the sense of like, oh, he has a secret life. Some people know, some people don't. How would this land with
Yeah.
people? So
Which I
As
did know a
someone
bit from Discord, but I didn't remember exactly, but I remembered that, like, people didn't like Tila's reaction, and, yeah, watching this, I was like, honestly, don't blame her at all.
yeah, I mean, well, I know all the lore, and I didn't understand back then why like she didn't know, because she was far more capable than at least one of the people, Orko, that knew about it. And like everyone's like,
Mhm.
well, Orko found out by accident. I'm like, the Sorceress of Grayskull has many, many powers and never hesitated to use her powers to like mind wipe people. They easily could have fixed Orko knowing. Tila should have point blank knew. She's literally in charge of protecting Prince Adam and training him. And she thinks the
Mhm.
whole time she's got this lazy's, you know, part of the reason it always seemed like she didn't take Adam serious as a romantic interest was because of how like, you know, he's just lazy and like wants to play and run around and be ridiculous. And that's why she never took him serious.
Which also, if my alter ego was He-Man, if that's how I would wanna be as a normal person. Like, you're
I
doing a
feel
lot of shit
I
as
feel
He-Man. I would be a lazy piece of
I mean,
shit.
even Superman lore has fixed that in recent years, where when things with him and Lois get serious, he tells Lois that he's also Superman, because the
Mhm.
writers of
Because the
Superman.
glasses, totally hide his
I
identity.
people say that, but like I wear these now, and I mean, I've lost a little weight, but I run into people I haven't seen since before I started wearing these, and they look at me like, you look really familiar, and then it's like, yeah, I don't take them off, and like, it's his eye. But I'm like, you know,
Everyone
hey,
puts on their glasses.
yeah,
"Oh,
right.
I don't have mine
who are you
nearby.
people? No,
I
I'm just
take the
Dang
glasses off and
it."
I flip my hair, and they're like, "Oh, it's Allison." The hair flip gave it away.
See,
Um,
it's similar with makeup. Like, I just went on a cruise this past weekend, and because we went out of the country, they had to take like pictures of us, and it literally did not recognize my face on the way back because I wasn't wearing makeup. So
yeah,
they had
I
to pull
mean,
me aside and check my passport. I'm like, yeah, this is bad. But
yeah.
anyways,
Anyway, we are sort of, but I mean, like,
who
it's
the hell is that?
valid to.
I was gonna say more about that. Like there's some cute Easter eggs directly to Filmation stuff, like with the shaping staff at the
Oh,
in the
yeah.
very first episode is a direct Filmation reference.
Okay.
But it stands on its own and it can be considered a spiritual successor to a lot of different things. But if you want to like,
Yeah.
where does it fit in the continuity of existing like MOTU properties? I think it's its own thing.
Okay. I kind of figured it was. Yeah. So, Brick, we didn't get to you on your memories from when Revelation came out.
From when it
Part
came
one.
out. Well, to go
Mhm.
back when they announced, this was like a wave of news. First Origins came out, and then they announced that they were going to do sort of a more adult collector type 6-inch figure, and they showed silhouettes, and I was like, oh, that's dope. That's like not the sort of exaggerated old school figures, which I was good with, but I did that back in the day. I was looking for something new, right? Yeah, and they teased that, and I was like, what is that going to be? And then they said they also announced another show in the CGI show. So now they were announcing like 2 continuations or 2 new on-screen versions of Masters of the Universe, and that was like, okay, that what's going on? So I was already intrigued by that, and then they said, and then of course I was waiting for the toys, and I kind of already in my brain I was like, yeah, I want to collect those. I want to try those out, and so when I started to see, I'm like a very visual person. And so when I heard sort of the talent behind it, particularly it was Powerhouse, who did the Castlevania show on Netflix. And I was like, okay, so they're really like, and that was really gory, adult, and had a little bit of an anime approach to the designs. So I was like, okay, this is different. It's not Filmation. And I'll confess that I did not like Filmation. I watched every single episode as it came on. I recorded those on, I was allowed, Johnny, they trusted me to press buttons on my VCR. And we recorded those.
You probably didn't break buttons when you pressed them.
The biggest fear was that you'd accidentally record somebody else's stuff by accident. Yeah. But so when they started doing the press, and then they announced Kevin Smith, and not just Kevin Smith, but I watch, it used to be called, well, it's now called Fat Man Beyond. He does a podcast, and it's also on YouTube with a writer, his buddy, Mark Bernardin. And so Mark Bernardin is just an amazing writer. And I really appreciate sort of his insights around storytelling on that podcast a lot. And so when I heard that they were involved, and then later that Ted Biaselli was kind of like the person at Netflix who was like trying to push this. Ted was actually, I want to say that he was on GDL, right? Yeah.
Him and Jay are friends. I actually reached out to him about Revolution to see, because like I was pretty sure that all 5 episodes were coming out at once, but I wanted to double check, and he responded to me, and I was like, amazing. Yeah, he's very like interactive with like all the stuff he works on, which is really cool. Like he doesn't even follow our GTFO Instagram. I don't think he follows my personal Instagram either. But he like liked and commented on our post. I was like, this is amazing. And I think it was purely just because of like the hashtags I used. Because I think he really gets into it, which is, it's awesome when someone is, that into something they're creating. Because there's a lot of people that are just like, okay, let's make this, give me the money,
Yeah.
Shatner.
So with him, like
shots fired.
Talk about throwing shade.
Yeah.
He I loved hearing him on GDL and sort of seeing him later. Like I think he was on Dad at Arms. He was on For Eternia, and just sort of hearing him, like, he does what your channel is. Like, he'll geek out. Like, he's like a hardcore Masters Universe fan. When he talks about it, that this was his pet project that he wanted to make happen.
If we asked him, I'm sure he would come on.
And so I really appreciated that. So between Kevin Smith, Mark Bernardin, him, Powerhouse Studios, just that part alone, I was really excited to see how this was going to go. And I totally heard them say, Kevin Smith, I remember saying, this is going to be a continuation or a sequel of Filmation. But
he did.
I didn't like, I don't know, like, to be honest, I was kind of like, ooh, what does that mean? Because I tried to watch those. I tried to show them to my kids as the ramp up, as I was starting to get back into Masters of the Universe, and it didn't hold up for me. And my kids like were done. I couldn't watch it with them because they were like getting angry, and first it was laughter, confusion, and that's just them. It's a different era, right? We're talking like, it's a completely different era. However, there are nuggets in that Filmation and the overall story stuff that I really like, and so to me, this was like, ooh, are they gonna maybe bring this into like a format where, like, I love that old stuff and it's still there and it's still in play? Because I do think, as Johnny kind of said, like, it still works. To me, this is like after years of adventuring through Filmation, and we're now at this point where, like, finally Skeletor wins or gets clever enough to do something really powerful and impactful, to the point that drives, and we'll talk about it when we talk episode 1, that finally drives He-Man to kind of, do something, have a reaction and use his power. Maybe. So anyway, so then it creates all this drama. It's sort of like, okay, what if we just took off all the, like, the need to make it for kids, even though I think it's kid friendly, but to take all the need to just make it like kid-like and like, oh, let's have a little, hey, at the end of the adventure, let's make sure everyone's safe. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those. Oh, it sounds like you've never seen any of those, Kayla, but at the end of every episode, there's like a lesson and we tell you about like what's going on. It was very
There's
much
a lot of shows growing up. I just started watching. I found out that Wishbone is all on YouTube, so I just started watching it.
Yeah,
that was my comfort
like,
show on the way home because it was very traumatizing. I'm like, I need something comforting.
On the way home today?
No, from my trip.
Oh,
my 31-hour journey home.
Oh, well, just that, like, there were things like he couldn't use his sword because of concerns about violence. Like, there was a lot of stuff that really frustrated me as a MOTU fan of the toy, because you'd read those comics and it was like, oh, he's got a battle axe, he's got a sword, and like, oh, in my brain it was like 80s barbarian, He-Man, I'm sorry, Conan, Beastmaster, the Barbarian Brothers, like Red Sonja. It was all of those kinds of things that in my brain when I was looking at those old Alcala mini comics, that's what He-Man was. And then he came to the cartoon. He had a page boy haircut. He was very like Superman Boy Scouty, like, hey kids, and it just didn't click for me. But like a good child of the 80s, like I fell in line.
Captain America's
and just watched it. Huh?
Captain to meet Chef Matey's comment, Captain America's like PSA that he did.
Well, totally. That was part of sort of the requirement to make cartoons based on toys, because it had been illegal until during the Reagan era when they deregulated a bunch of stuff. But parent groups and educators were like, hey, like, so it had to have religious educational content. And there were religious groups. People forget, but there were religious groups who, even with all of that, protested stuff like MOTU because it was quote unquote satanic or
even with Harry Potter, they did that. I'm like, it's a made up story.
Sort of that sanitized PSA stuff that they put in Filmation. It's still, there were some people that were never happy with it because you know, like, think of the children. It's like, well, you know, like, we are thinking of the children. They need some better freaking entertainment than this nonsense. So I'm just saying, there was some not so great stuff that fit before I think maybe the regulations could have been a little less loosened, but there was some nonsense for this kids. I remember before.
I know how you read that.
Yes.
But yeah, there was a whole anti-D&D satanic panic thing, and so you know, all of this, so they had to pull back a lot in that Filmation. My point with all that was when they said it was a sequel to Filmation, I got scared, but then was hoping, if you know anything about Kevin Smith's work, like, it's crass. It's do you watch all of Kevin Smith? Okay, I was gonna say you'd love it. Some of it, maybe
stuff,
not.
Yeah,
but
not
the innuendo's on point, and the like.
Oh yeah. We're gonna do all FYI. We're gonna do all the That's What They Said's on Monday, since everyone will be here for that.
Okay.
And,
like
I mean, some are obviously on purpose.
I needed to line up, so if Thanos is here, he gets, and you know exactly which line I mean. But we need Thanos to get that. Yeah, I want to. Yeah. Anyway,
she hasn't got there yet. That's part 2.
Yeah,
I haven't watched part 2.
If it falls to me, I'm passing to Thanos.
But I know about it.
Well, how could you not?
So I was just gonna say, back at Filmation, they weren't allowed to use a sword. You saw how they use the sword in this, even in the first episode, right? The sword is a sword. It's sharp, and as Kevin Smith says, stabby stab. Like, there's a lot of stabby stab, fighty fight, punch punch. And so
blood.
Yeah, they were saying that that's how they would write in the script. They're like, we don't have to describe fights because Powerhouse will figure that out. Like, they Powerhouse gave them, I was like, don't worry, we got the fighting thing. So they would just write fighty fight, and then Powerhouse would sort of figure out how the fighting happened. So anyway, it's just like, I was excited, but I was also a little bit like confused as to how it would work out. When I finally saw it, I was like, oh wow, I get it. Like, it's a mix. And we'll see it as we talk in the first episode, but like even some of the things that were like a little grating for me in Filmation, particularly, Cringer sometimes and Orko, they used it to great effect, especially if you're able to sit through the entire thing and sort of see where each of those characters go. And anyway, that's my recollection. Let's
I love
get
how
to it.
Cringer and Orko are my favorites. And also, when someone said like Merman reminds me of Batman, I had to look up who voiced Merman. I was like, oh, Kevin Conroy. That makes sense. Rest in peace. But I didn't realize that Orko was voiced by Griffin Newman, who does the Blank Check podcast.
And
I
Orko,
love.
I
And
said,
like,
was grading.
No wonder
for
why I
me.
like him.
I said Orko was grading for me in Filmation. He's like one of my favorite pieces of this show, what they were able to do with that.
Yeah, I love his character so much.
I did not like Orko
I was
at
really
all.
deciding between Orko and Cringer makeup, but Orko is a little difficult.
Just big O.
But I guess. But yeah, so shall we get into the episodes?
Yep.
So the first episode is The Power of Grayskull, and I'll do a quick summary, and then I'll get into my notes and then can kind of talk about it in general. So the summary is, during Tila's ceremony to become Man-at-Arms, He-Man gets alerted by Sorceress that Skelly is trying to get or take over Castle Grayskull. And everyone goes to the rescue. Do not put me in the big... Okay, I was like, don't put me in the big screen. I should be getting mine soon. Everyone goes to the rescue and fights while Skelly and He-Man fight. Skelly tricks He-Man into unlocking the secrets of Grayskull, which He-Man tries to contain with his sword, and they both end up disappearing / dying, as we find out. And the king and Tila learn his secret identity, and Man-at-Arms is banished, and Tila gets upset and leaves. And that's pretty much the first episode. There's a lot in between, obviously. But my first note is this music is very a la Rings of Power sounding, and then I looked it up, and it was Bear McCreary, and I was like, oh, okay, well, obviously they both did the music, which I knew because I had seen someone do a poster story with the Revelation music, and I saw Bear McCreary, but I had forgotten about it since then. So that was cool because I love his music in Rings of Power. But like my next note is I love how Tila and Sorceress were already like main characters in this episode, and it's not just like focused on all the men, focused on He-Man, because like that's kind of what I was expecting it to be. And I didn't realize Cringer was going to talk, so that was very exciting. And then I was like, damn, these puns, so many dad jokes. But they weren't that bad. Like at first I was like, oh no, there's going to be a lot of these, but honestly wasn't that bad. And then one of my first questions is like I totally thought that Castle Grayskull was run by Skeletor. So I was like, wait, he's trying to get to it? So I was very confused, but so that was interesting to learn. And then also, speaking of Skelly, Mark Hamill crushes it as Skeletor. Like, such a good job, especially after seeing him in person at the Fan Expo and like hearing him do his like Joker impressions and stuff. I'm just like, oh, you're so talented in so many ways. Let's see. And then and I said, so a girl can be Man-at-Arms? That's cool. And then I was like, I love Prince Adam's Sailor Moon transition into He-Man that they did.
Yeah, they
Power of Grayskull.
they added the like the swirl around with the like translucent blue effect is a little different than the transformation scenes I've seen, but I mean it was good. I'm all but that harkens back to like that henshin tokusatsu kind of stuff, which like And that's probably He-Man is probably the root of my Power Rangers and Sentai fandom. Like all those, that's one of the things I really liked. Sorry, tangent time. I really liked about the CGI He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was the sharing of the power between all the people. It was like a Masters of the Universe tokusatsu. It was great. But
you're talking about the CGI.
The CGI one. Yeah, that one.
Oh, so good. The way they did that.
And
We
I
all
love
have
Ram
the
Man.
power.
Yeah.
Love Ram Man. Crass is Ram Mam. Crass is great.
And
continue.
Oh yeah. And then I like how Cringer transformed too, which makes more sense why when I've seen the toy, I have seen him referred to Cringer or Battle Cat. So I'm like, okay, this makes a lot more sense now. Which I thought was so funny during the transformation. He was trying to run away. And He-Man's like, no, you got to change too. And my next note is Skelly and He-Man fisted each other. Hee hee. And then I wasn't expecting to see Mossman, which I mean, in this episode, we see him more in his like toyetic form. Well, at least the toy I have in the later episode, in the last episode. But I wasn't expecting to see him. But I loved Skelly's like, oh, smells like pine. I'm like, oh, I get that reference.
Smells like pine.
I was so excited. I was like, oh, I get it because the toy smells like pine. And then I was shocked that it wasn't a castle after all. It was just the Hall of Wisdom. Hall of Wisdom.
Sorry, we just kind of glossed over the Moss Man, but he says that after burning him to a crisp. How did that like for you? Was that the moment where, because you said earlier I was expecting it to be dark, and then it was like a lot of dad jokes.
I was
then all of a sudden you
expecting him
see someone
to still
burned to death.
live somehow, especially because he's like a plant. So I'm like, where does he end? Is there more of him somewhere? And also because I didn't believe that He-Man and Skelly were dead either at the end. So, obviously find out later that he was dead.
But still an arguably pretty adult thing to put on screen to see someone burn to death.
Yeah.
No? Hey, I just wondered because that wouldn't have been in Filmation.
For me, growing up, like cartoons were cartoons. Like even just like regular shows, I kind of disassociated things. So I have that different perspectives that probably some kids don't have. I also watched a lot of war movies as a kid, so like desensitized me real quick.
Well, I just think in terms of what you were talking about later, in terms of people's reaction to the situation, what happens immediately after that drives He-Man to kind of like cross the line, because he never did anything like that. And if we're in the mode of like, oh, I watched Filmation, saw that, and like the heroes always won, the villains were always stupid. In this case, it starts off with the villains actually being kind of clever, breaking into Castle Grayskull, kind of being relatively successful, and then Skeletor finally doing something that actually hurts one of the masters, actually killing one of the masters, which then triggers He-Man to kind of like cross that line, which I was like, that helped me go like, oh, okay, this is the Kevin Smith, Mark Bernardin show by Powerhouse that I kind of suspected might happen. I was hoping. So that was a big deal for me to see that all play out in that first episode.
I think because like I didn't know their relationship at all, and I didn't even know Mossman was like that substantial of a character. I thought he was just kind of like, I don't know, off to the side, like third tier, or I don't know.
He was. They worked him into this, made him kind of.
Yeah.
I want to say he was more prominent in the 2000X show than he was in Filmation.
And then I was like, does Sorcerers have a crush on Teela or something? Which, of course, later on, we keep getting hints that, Teela is more than just Teela. So I figured that had something to do with it, why she, made that comment of wanting to see Tila again. And then, I was like, He-Man can't be dead. There's like no way. Like plot armor, he can't be dead yet. I was like, how does his mom know who he is, but on his dad? Like, that's kind of fucked up. And then my last comment for the episode is, oof, Tila's a redhead. Yep, I like her.
You like that moment where she lets her hair down? And then all of a sudden it's like...
Yeah, and that's also my first comment for the next episode. But so that's all I have for the first episode. Feel free to give your thoughts now.
Randor is particularly over the top in this. Like,
oh yeah,
at the very beginning, is like when Adam's like, oh, look how proud Man-at-Arms is, and Randor's like, that's parental pride, Adam, something I can hopefully feel one day as your father.
Yes,
I was like, Jesus Christ,
savage.
They turned it up to 11.
Which I'm also I will say one other thing is, like, watching this, it felt like I should have watched another show before this. Like, I felt like I definitely was missing some background because it really just like throws you into it. Like, you learn about his secret identity, so then like for you it's like not like, or sorry, for me it's not really a lot of build up, plus I already knew that. But there was a lot of other stuff just with like Tila and He-Man and Tila and Adam's relationship, and who knew about the secret identity, who didn't, who He-Man has been like friends with, and Mossman, and just like the history with Skeletor. Like it felt like I was missing all that, but at the same time I was still able to follow it and like feel a lot of those emotions. Like, I didn't feel it as much with Mossman, but with all the other stuff that happened, like with Tila feeling betrayed, with He-Man and Skelly disappearing or dying at the end. I was still able to like be in it and feel all those emotions. It's still, at the same time, I was like, I want more background on this.
They kind of front loaded the series with all the references, like, because we got Fisto and Clamp Champ in this. There was Rotons, the Bashosaurus was in it, like all those Easter eggs of toys that never made it to screen before or were briefly on screen. I don't think the Bashosaurus was in Filmation at all, and characters that may not have been. They really kind of front loaded it with all the stuff that people were expecting, so that then they could go in their own direction.
I was actually going to ask at the end, but since you brought it up now, if there were any toys that were made at the time that weren't in anything previously that showed up in Revelation.
Bashosaurus was one of them. Is there any that...
Roton, I don't.
Or like variations of certain characters.
Yeah, Bashosaurus definitely. I mean, it came out in '85, and Filmation had stopped production on He-Man and had moved to She-Ra at that point.
Clamp Champ was never in Filmation, was he?
Nope, he was too late in the game. Clamp Champ was not ever in the old series. Let me double check really quick.
While she's looking at
that,
that,
the main things. I mean, Roton, I don't think was ever in the Filmation series, and they didn't work it into She-Ra for sure. Because they did do that with some of the toys, where they would work them into Princess of Power, just so that they could advertise it.
Night Stalker, yeah, because we had Stridor was in.
I was gonna ask about Scareglow.
Yeah,
Scareglow was Scareglow and Clam Champ, and were both 86 figures. So they were after even She-Ra had ended. So that whole wave, none of those were in the old cartoon.
Okay.
Ninja,
which is perfect because I have a Scareglow.
Blast Attack comes up in these, and he was he had never appeared in the old stuff. So.
They really know what they're writing. I think they know. Like Fister. Come on.
Of course. Oh, totally.
Well, you know.
They
I
know.
mean, real quick on that note, you know, even the Mattel folks, when they're creating the characters back in the day, Merman's, one of the Merman's early names was Seaman.
And they changed it.
And they
like,
changed
well,
it.
maybe
That one didn't
Yeah.
quite
But
make it
at
all
that
the way.
time, it was He-Man, Beastman was Tree Man, Skeletor was D-Man.
I mean,
and, yeah, so like at that point,
D-Man.
everyone had man in there, you know, like, and you know, like, because that was when Masters of the Universe was intended to be more of a, almost like an Action Man, G.I. and not like,
Yeah.
like where
A
it was like
general
you
character,
bought,
generic character.
there were like 4 to
Mhm.
8 basic characters, and then you bought accessory kits to make them into different characters. So it changed and became what it was. But originally, it was just like you've got Tree Man, which aka Beast Man, and then you go by the Tree Man action sets, and then he's sort of a different character. So that kind of got lost really quick because of just how MOTU evolved. But yeah, so a lot of them, you know, Seaman, like, you know, they did change that to Merman, but when they were developing that, I'm assuming like there were plans where it would wait year 2 of MOTU would have like, here, get Seaman's Under the Sea like octopus set with all the octopuses, you know, like whatever.
Octopussy.
The James Bond song we needed but never got.
Imagine a blast attack from Seaman. Anyway, sorry.
Blast attack from Seaman. Lead a giant raid on Fisted.
I'm curious because I don't have like any background with them, obviously. I don't like, obviously Tila like gave up her position as a man-at-arms, but also like with Skeletor gone, I feel like a lot of people at that point would have been like, who do we have to really fight anymore? Which obviously there was with Triclops.
Technically Man-at-Arms is like a position in the court, you know, like in the royal army, so you would still need a royal army. A couple of people made that these, but I one disagree, like, and I can relate personally, like I've been sort of lied to, and that's, you know, obviously not a He-Man Prince Adam situation, but I've been lied to pretty significantly. And the betrayal is just overall, anyone who knew, you don't want to talk to that person. And as far as, you know, like if it's a romantic type person, I don't want to hang out with his dad. I don't care how good his parents were. Fuck those people. Like, all of you get out of my life. Like, Tila's reaction is
hard when it's the parents.
Is normal for somebody who's actually been betrayed. It's not how we expect fictional characters to react, because it's a pretty normal reaction.
Exactly.
To being 8.
I felt it was very human.
19 years old in the canon. Even in this, she's not even 21 yet. This is a normal reaction for an older teenager, young adult person who has been betrayed in a really significant way. I think because Tila has been always portrayed in a very mature way. You know, in Filmation, like, you would never guess that He-Man, She-Ra, Tila, they're all like 18, 19 years old at the most. Like, you would never guess that because of how they're designed.
Puppies having dreams.
But these are teenagers. Like, Tila has a very normal teenage reaction to somebody who's done everything right her whole life, been super strong, never, you know, like, she's never turned evil, or, you know, when she makes mistakes, or normal mistakes, she learns from them. She's like that kid in your high school. She was like straight A's every assignment, on time, every group, every club, overachieve, and then one day like realizes, what the F am I doing here? Like, I'm not, and everybody sucks. So I think it's a normal real world reaction, and I think a lot of people have a hard time adapting real world to like fictional characters. So it's, I got it, because I literally have been there. And I get why some people didn't get it, but sort of the insistence that it was out of character, it's like, you don't know how anyone's going to react to that sort of betrayal.
I get, figuratively speaking's point of like what their character was like then. But at the same time, like, if you don't, like, you're really never gonna know what someone's gonna do unless they happen to be in the same exact position twice. So unless that happened in Filmation, I
Yeah.
don't think you really know. Like, it could seem out of character, but also, yeah, you know, everyone reacts to things very differently. Sorry,
And
Brett, go
I'm
ahead.
probably like maybe iconoclastic. I don't mean to like yuck anyone's yum who are big Filmation fans, but just to go back to what we were saying earlier, like again in Filmation, He-Man wasn't allowed to use his sword. So it's like, is it out of character now? Do we freak out when he's using his sword? Because we never saw that. Like there were a lot of things about Filmation that were simply the limits of the storytelling, the medium, who they were trying to reach. And so without those limits, I think, yeah, they were trying to kind of take the basic premise and bring it into 21st century storytelling for a Netflix audience, right? And it wasn't even for kids. Like they were real intentional. They were like, we have a two-pronged strategy. We're gonna do this again. Powerhouse did Castlevania. If you've ever seen that, it's real like grown up. You got Kevin Smith, and like he did a cartoon once, but like it's pretty grown up stuff with some comedies and all that. And he was like a big Filmation fan too as a kid. But then you've got the CGI show, which intentionally was skewing younger, more like a YA kind of audience. So I don't know. I personally didn't really. I personally wasn't thinking like, oh, this is out of character from Filmation, because there was so much about the Filmation stuff that was like that. I don't know. I would. It's again hard. It would be hard for me to watch. But like on that note,
Which is no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll say it after.
well, just to talk about the reaction. It's everything that Allison was saying, but also just to fill in the rest of the context, like they had just finally, basically, she saw Moss Man, which was someone that she knew and considered a comrade, right? They were fighting Skeletor together, and He-Man and Adam all die, and she saw all of that, and she was like, at that moment, was just actually like, WTF is going on? Like, wait, he's He-Man, and wait, he actually can die, and sure, on the one hand, we killed Skeletor, but it was like that to me signaled, and maybe it didn't communicate very well in the show, but like that was all a big deal, and that's why I asked you about Moss Man, because it kind of happened so quick that it's almost like, wait, this is kind of a big deal here. And so in addition to that, the world almost ended like right all before that. Like again, I do feel, and especially in rewatching, it was like, oh, it's kind of fast, but essentially the world was coming to an end because there was going to be this explosion of magic that Skeletor triggered, and Sorceress stops time. We forget, and I don't want to spoil anything, but she says some really weird stuff that you alluded to Teela. It's like, well, why did you stop time? Because I wanted to see you one last time or something. And you're like, wait, what? So Teela's like,
which I was like, I'm getting the vibes there.
Yeah. So Teela's like, wait, what the hell is going on? What are you telling me right now? And we're trying to stop the world from dying. And then all of a sudden, He-Man's saying, I'll do this thing. And then she's like, wait, what do you mean in this form? And then she finds out that the best friend that like, this is my thing with Teela. If you watch Filmation, I think this is totally true to the spirit of Filmation. Like, she's annoyed with Adam most of the time. And she's kind of like, well, let me show you how it's done, because he's this spoiled prince who like seemingly is lazy and doesn't do anything. And she's kind of like, oh, this guy.
Which once again, I think is valid.
But it's sort of like, that's what she thought. And then all of a sudden, she was kind of, if you watch those back, she was kind of shitty to him sometimes. Just kind of like dismissed it.
Absolutely.
So now it's like, holy shit, I was treating you like crap when this entire time you were actually the hero that was saving me and everyone this whole time. I feel like a total ass. No one's telling me. And then fast forward, because again, it's so fast, but fast forward into the throne room, and then all of a sudden it's like high drama. You know, Marlena's like, no, Randor, you don't understand. Our son is dead. And she's like, so she's watching all this, like, what is going on? And then that's where everything that Allison said, it's like, F this, like, this is all super confusing. You're all a bunch of liars. And on top of that, I think she was genuinely pissed off at Randor, because he just like, Man-at-Arms, her father was like super loyal and was just following the orders of the prince. Like, he told us not to tell you. And like, he gets fired and exiled. Not just fired. He is no longer allowed to be in the kingdom. That's some big deal. And even though that's the king, you're like, F this guy and F all you all. I'm out.
I thought that
flips
was
the
a
table
bit
and leaves.
extreme, but also like in the heightened state of emotion. Like, that's gonna happen.
Sort of pigtail on that. So like, also, where did Tila grow up? Tila grew up in the palace. Why did she grow up in the palace? Because her dad is Man-at-Arms. What was Tila's childhood? Learning how to fight and protecting Prince.
But he's not her biological dad, right?
Right, adopted
dad. It depends on which lore you're looking at, but it's possible he is. There are a couple different continuities. There are reasons Thanos doesn't tell certain stories when he does his Thursdays, and I mean his Wednesdays and stuff. Anyway, but what I will say is, like,
said in one of these episodes, they specifically called out in one of the 5, like, one of them said adopted father or adopted daughter. So that's the continuity here.
Yeah, when they called her an orphan too.
In all continuities, he is her adopted father, but there are some continuities where it's implied he is not. So that's worth noting. Sometimes it's implied that he and her mother had a thing. Other times it's implied he and his brother, who is not always his brother in all continuities, is. So in some continuities, he might be her uncle. But we've never gotten a consistent answer on who the dad is. But even that aside, he's the only father she's ever known. She's grown up completely. It's like, say, it's like Alfred Pennyworth for Batman. Like, your dad is the butler. He is got all this shit. You're the servant's kid. You've grown up in the palace. Your entire life is subservient to all of this nonsense, and you've accepted it. You've thrown yourself into it. You've embraced it, and then one day you find out that your best friend / protector has been lying to you, and you're in love with. You thought you're in a love triangle, kind of. And you're not. You're like in love with one person who lied to you. Could have resolved all the strife. People are dying. Your dad just gets exiled, and the king is a bastard as fuck. Like, like, I think she has had. I think it's a legitimate.
Let's have a revolution.
She's been an overachiever, do-gooder, pick me her whole freaking life. All of a sudden, she's like, "Screw it, I'm out." Anyway, just my take.
While you have that in your mouth, or were you?
Sorry. I was expecting Allison to keep talking. Sorry. I was gonna say, like both of you just kind of said, it's a very layered thing that's happened. With He-Man's identity being revealed, because it's not just him. It's everyone else that knew his identity and her relationships with those people as well. And then he dies. And like she says later on, at the end of this, at the end of part 1, like she couldn't even really grieve him because she felt like she didn't know him. And I don't know, that's like a lot of complicated emotions to handle. And on top of all that, I just want to say what you said before, Brick, with how people were like shocked about her reaction, but also how like He-Man used the sword and how he normally wouldn't use the sword before, and how there's other stuff like that has been changed. It's really funny to me how people seem to focus on a woman's character's reactions, but not on the sword and the killing and all that other stuff. But they happen to focus on that. Just saying, it's coincidence? I think not.
Well, yeah. In addition, I'll say, just to pick up on a couple of comments. So earlier above, it was Stanley's Toy Channel saying that I felt Revelation was had more of an adult orientation, and Filmation was more for kids. You have to look at the times and show who the show's for. And the other thing is, like, if you remember, well, the context was like, even in our intros, we're like, oh, I'm excited to see MOTU again. And so on the one hand, it's not just, oh, it was for kids and now it's for adults. It's kind of like it was for certain kids at a particular time, and now those kids are now adults. So it's also like it kind of grew with us. So that's what I kind of find interesting. That's sort of what I was alluding to in my sort of intro in terms of my expectations for Revelation at the time, or how I was feeling. Because it was like I tried to watch Filmation as an adult, and I acknowledge, like, I can watch it for like, oh, fun, but like where I'm at in my brain and kind of like the kind of media I want to consume and think about, it was like, ooh, this is weird. But this kind of balanced those things. So I love the complicated feelings. I love the like, oh, if all that stuff that you saw as a kid were true, like how would actual people have to deal with this stuff? Because it's weird stuff. And I dug that, but it's also still in the fantastic world of magic and high tech and barbarian. So I thought that was really cool. And then I don't know how much to like, I just don't know about spoilers and stuff, but people have said some other stuff in there that I thought.
Yeah, I saw a
interesting.
couple of the things. I will say I just watched these 3 times in the last 24 hours. She was definitely called an orphan, and it was like her adopted father. So not real father for sure.
Yeah,
I know that.
Yeah,
at least in part 1.
Yeah, at least some.
Yeah,
part
remember
one.
there's a pinned message. Try to
that's why I
keep
kind of
part
chatted
2
it.
spoilers out of it, because Kayla has not watched part 2 yet.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
Filmation stuff. I think some of the spoilers that you saw, Kayla, were Filmation spoilers, so that might not be the way they
Okay.
go with it.
Yeah, Filmation. Yeah, I've been trying to stick to.
I think,
But
I think I
as
saw
a-
the one that popped up.
I already know some things anyway,
Yeah, and
so like
for
it's
instance,
okay.
in Filmation, there's an episode called Tila's Secret, where Tila discovers her relationship to the sorceress, and they use magic to remove that from Tila's mind, because it would be too dangerous for Tila to know this
That reminds
thing,
me of another show.
which will become really
movie.
so. For me, I
Buffy?
also play, even though Tila
I
doesn't
love that.
remember that thing. I feel like there's emotion. Like, I don't know that wiping
Harry
her
Potter?
memory would remove emotion.
Harry
So
Potter.
I also sort of felt like that played into Tila's reaction. She's had them take important information away from her before, like, because they don't trust her.
Yeah,
And
that's a Charles Xavier move right there.
Somebody in chat said, but Orko knows how to keep a secret. And that's valid. But why does Tila not know how to keep a secret? She's never proved that she doesn't. And it's like, so there's that layer to it too. Orko knows, Orko can keep it secret, but Orko's a screw up. He's always, like, messing up. And there are times where he does say things
We love Orko.
accidentally. The way again, this is based on my personal relationships that inform this. Like, my first thought would have been, how have I proved myself untrustworthy that I'm not allowed to know?
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of Tila. Everything.
Yeah.
Tila went through. There's that aspect too. What did she?
It's just another layer.
Like, she can't be trusted. You've got her dad treating her well, like it's definitely a dad layer. Like, we just didn't want to worry you, baby. Yet you let me protect the prince. You let me go into battle. I've only been killed multiple times by Skeletor and his goons.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't trust,
especially because that's her dad.
And there are times
I think it's just like
killed trying to protect
so
Adam
much.
when she was with He-Man. So she and He-Man are going into battle to rescue Adam. She almost gets killed when He-Man's right next to her. How many times has she almost died because they lied to her? So, like, there's again, because it's an adult show with adult emotion. Like, this is Filmation. Like, this would never come up, but like for this show, like, these are valid
Donk
concerns. Oh, we've got a cat.
Dork is real.
Hi, cutie.
I will say
My
we keep saying
baby.
adult show, and I totally get that. But I also want to acknowledge, like, this is where my kids, 10 years old and 12-year-old, I think they were younger at that time, but they struggled a little bit with the Filmation because it was a very different time. Kids then are different from what kids are exposed to and watch now.
Totally.
So like I actually think this show as is, even though it has sort of adult themes, I think many young people would be fine with it, especially if they're like, anime is one of the biggest things, and anime storytelling is actually very complex in terms of what students
very violent.
What young people what characters go through. Some are violent, some are like romantic, some are like just
I've seen
real cerebral that
I
just, to me, again, I just keep calling it 21st century storytelling in terms of like think about Inside Out, right? Or Up. Like it's very like those are meant for kids and they're meant for adults. And I think Revelation is sort of straddling that line a little bit, but with more action oriented kind of like energy.
So true.
So
we get real weird real fast.
I don't like Pixar movies, so I'll try to do that.
Oh yeah, it's like talking about mental health to kids essentially. Which is great.
Loving
which is
someone and losing them and feeling empty.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Stuff we need to talk about with kids more. I mean, we already have such a problem talking about mental health with adults that like talking to kids, like if adults don't even know what mental health is and how to talk about it, how are they expected to talk about it with kids?
And that was very different in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so if you're not used to that, or if it's weird to you to deal with that, I totally get how it would seem odd to see like people on Eternia kind of dealing with this heavy stuff. But
which is why, I called it very like heartfelt. Because like obviously there's still these like bad things that happen. But also, there's a lot of like coming together and like being a family at the end of the day, especially at the end of this part. There's a lot of that stuff too. And there's, the dad jokes and the puns. Like there's a little bit of everything. And I think that's what makes it so good. But so we have 4 more episodes to cover. So
before we move on, I was going to say the same thing. There's one more thing I want to mention. As Tila's walking away from the palace, there is a voice that says, He-Man finally killed Skeletor. And to me, that was very clearly Alan Oppenheimer, the original voice actor for Filmation Skeletor. It sounded just like him, just without doing the over-the-top Skeletor portion.
It's like as she's walking away, it's a crowd, right?
Yeah.
Huh. And she's like, F you people, like so much more than that happened. But
honestly, if Inside Out came out when I was a kid, I think that would have helped me a lot. Just saying. Dealt with a lot of death as a kid. Didn't go to therapy until college. So anyways. Both Johnny and Allison are gone. So episode 2 is called The Poison Chalice. Tila and Andra are now mercenaries. Okay.
Sorry, I was going to try to do it, then she came back. She ruined it. We were all going to disappear.
I just had to get Andra and Tila.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
Over on my shelves.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Inside Out 2 looks great. I love how there's a character anxiety. I'm like, oh, it's me.
Tangent time. Remember when I posted all my Tilas to Instagram and I was like, I know I have the Wave 1 Masterverse Tila, but I can't find her anywhere. She was inside my goddamn gelatinous cube. That's why I couldn't find her. I put her in the D&D gelatinous cube when I got it. I look over one day and I just see the hand sticking out of the side of the gelatinous cube. I was oh, there's Tila. Okay, anyway, continue.
And so they accept a job. So they're mercenaries now. They accept a job from Majestra, who I'm like, right off the bat, I'm like, this is Evil Lynn. Like, how do they not realize this is Evil Lynn? Like, even I knew.
Because she's used the name Majestra before, and like that's a name she has used in disguise. Although the time she used it before, she was like a very sexy slinky, like with the white hair bob, and she had that shaping staff that Skeletor used in the last. So it was. I mean, I think that was, in my opinion, was the case where an Easter egg for the fans made the characters look a little dumb because like it's a known alias of Evil Lynn. Just because she's old and frumpy doesn't mean. I mean, maybe Majestra's had about 20, 30 years, and I can relate Majestra, but still.
But so
And
in
it
that
was-
case, who would have known Allison would have been Tila, right? But
Yeah.
then we also do know that she actually did know the whole
Yeah,
time.
there's that.
Remember,
but I
she
just-
kind of later she goes, "Yeah, what's up, Evil Lynn?" Like she
well,
knew.
but at the
She
same
knew.
time, I wouldn't take it. Like if my,
I mean, I don't know if she knew at the beginning. Maybe she did. She totally
if one
could
of the
have.
Carls showed up and they were like wearing a wig and some face, like some face putty and a mustache, and like, "Hi, I'm Carl with a K. Like, I need you to take a job." I would be like, "Get out of here, Carl."
Carl.
I appreciated that it was Lena Headey still doing like
Yeah.
the voice,
Yes, which
just differently rather
her.
than getting a different voice actor for it.
Cersei.
Actually, and also while we're mentioning her, I was really happy with her Evil Lynn. Anyway,
She
Oh, it's fantastic.
I think perfect casting for
Yeah.
sure.
very good.
For sure. Which I think if she hadn't been that character in Game of Thrones, maybe she wouldn't have been cast. But yeah, perfect. Okay, let me just get through the summary. We can talk about it. So they're hired by Majestra to get a goblet from Snake Mountain, which of course Tila is all for, and Andrew's like, "Are you crazy?" And they find that Snake Mountain has been taken over by Triclops, making people drink Motherboard's juices, as I put, to become these weird cyborg things. Oh, here's some pictures.
Nice.
Okay. Thanks, Brick.
I need that.
Oh, sorry, Majestra. Keep going. This will
Love.
just be visual.
Let's see. Oh, Evelyn reveals herself at the Hall of Wisdom, and the goblet ends up being Skeletor's Havoc staff containing the last bit of magic, which Sorceress then transfers into Evil Lynn's staff ball thing. Staff ball thing. And tells Tila she must find the two halves of the Sword of Power and reforge it to fix the magic in Eternia.
Yep.
Is this going to happen every summary now?
Maybe. I can't say it won't. It's MOTU. Like, how can it not? It's MOTU.
Wow.
You've got two of the biggest MOTU nerds on here with one of the other ones.
And we're
And
visually
y'all are
obsessed
like
people,
the three of the biggest.
Wait. Should it be Evil Lynn and Evil Lynn? Chris Plastic that kiss, or Tila and Evil Lynn? So.
They should have
They make them kiss.
Come
Is that
to
what
me.
you're
I
saying?
love myself
Now
more
kiss.
than I love anyone.
Now kiss. So yeah, my first note for this episode is, oof, Tila cut her hair even better.
Meh.
Not only is she a redhead, but she has that haircut. I'm like, mommy. Love. Is it Andra or Andra? Andra?
It's technically
Andra, I think she
Andra.
said.
Andra. Okay, that's
I've
what
heard
I
it
thought.
pronounced all three ways. It's like Leia.
Yeah, so Tila really doesn't like magic, which, as we've kind of discussed, makes sense given everything she's seen now.
It's foreshadowing.
Yeah. Love her character. I love her jokes, which she makes one pretty right off the bat, but we'll save that for That's What They Said.
Great actor too. I love her. Been following her
Yeah.
since Collider. But anyway.
And then my next note is, wait, He-Man's alive? Or is this a throwback? Yes, it's a throwback.
It's a great throwback.
Yeah, which it's funny how both this flashback and the one in the next episode relate to stuff that happens in the episode, which obviously they did that on purpose, but yeah. Let's see. And I was like, Motherboard already? I thought she was at the end of Revelation, and I was like, never mind, we don't really see her.
I was talking and I was muted. Sorry. Which is how you use a flashback, unlike some other shows.
Oh,
Continue.
Yes, well done.
What other show?
But
Book of
also
Boba
just while you're
Huh?
on that, we
Book of Boba
glossed
Fett.
over.
Oh,
We glossed over. This wasn't the first flashback. There were a lot in the first episode, but we'll come back to that.
yeah. But I just mean in terms of flashbacks of like Tila and He-Man and their adventures
Mm-hmm.
before.
Oh, I'm sorry. There weren't flashbacks. Never mind. Scratch that. Rewind. Keep going.
Okay. And then I was like, what is this weird cult going on here. I mean, I would do anything for mommy motherboard though, so I get it. And let's see. Oh yeah, I was like, I love how Cersei is Evil Lynn, and I was like, Evil Lynn is good now? Question mark. Which I always suspected her. Yep, Triclops. I always suspected her, and obviously she turns back at the end. But I'm still hopeful in part 2. Maybe she'll come back after their time together. And my next note
Evil
is.
Lynn?
Yeah.
I mean, despite Evil Lynn's name, she's not truly evil. Evil Lynn is out for Evil Lynn. So Evil Lynn can't be like she's good or evil. It's always going to be, what does Evil Lynn want and what does Evil Lynn need? And that's consistent with Filmation.
She's Evil also Lynn goes is always by out Mommy Lynn.
And when
she's into Skeletor, that might mean helping Skeletor succeed because she's into him. But when she's not, and there are times where she'll stab him in the back.
Like neutral.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which when she does turn again in the last episode, my note is funny. I said, I love Cringer. He's so cute. Also like a therapist / middleman because he, convinces Tila.
Exactly.
And I was like, I need a Cringer toy ASAP. And they realize they need man-at-arms to help them. And that's how the episode ends. And that's my last note. Any thoughts on episode 2?
I fucking love Henry Rollins as Triclops, the crazy cult leader. It's my favorite part of this series.
It really is a cult.
So fucking perfect. Triclops has always been, I don't know what it is. Triclops, the figure, has in every iteration has always been one of my favorite vintage figures, one of my favorite classics figures, one of my favorite, like Triclops is one of my favorite figures. Every iteration of him has been great, in my opinion. He always just stands out to me as my number 2 like bad guy underneath Skeletor. I love Triclops, and I love Henry Rollins as him as a crazy cult leader is just fucking perfect.
Yep. Henry Rollins of Black Flag / Rollins Band. That's the voice.
Rick is just going to be constantly pulling. Wait,
Henry Rollins, who kicked
he's
his
in a band?
ass.
He was the lead singer of Black Flag, and then eventually the Henry Rollins Band. He's a spoken word artist.
Okay,
actor.
Because like the voice gave me those vibes. And I'm like, yeah, that's really funny.
Have it on good authority. He was a member. He was on several people's spank bank list in the 90s. So,
has anyone else called this a cult or cult leader, or did I just start that?
Oh no, it's totally referred to as the cult of Motherboard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's really funny because I had never heard of that, but that's what I called it in my notes. So.
Well, it's because it's sort of how it's referred to. Sort of at a certain point, because where it ends with Motherboard, people have shifted it away from calling it quite that because it's story-wise, MOTU-wise, it becomes bigger than just sort of the cult of Motherboard. It becomes another thing. So I think that kind of got lost over time. But in the first chunk, the episodes we're here to discuss tonight on your illustrious program, everyone did refer to it as sort of the cult of Motherboard at that point. So it evolves by the end of it so that it gets called something else. But yeah, so that's probably why you haven't heard as much, because you did sort of come in to a lot of the conversations after it ends. So yeah.
But also, I mean, they're literally in there praying to this thing and human sacrifice in robes, which is like pretty damn culty.
Yeah. Motherboard
secretions.
Exactly. Yeah. Slay those Thetans.
Her juices. Any other thoughts on episode 2 before we go to episode 3?
That was my only note. Triclops is fucking great.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Blast Attack is in that one. I just want to name the weirdest character. I'm sure you picked up on what he is, but he he was the guy who Tila throws him into the other enemies and he explodes. So his power is to explode.
Throws him into the other
He
enemies.
just like
and he
blows all over
explodes.
He's he's a bomb.
He's
Like
like
his body is a bomb.
He's
like
the one who was
an-
laying on the
I mean,
ground
I
and,
probably
pushing
saw it.
buttons on his chest to stop himself
Yes.
from exploding.
Yes. Okay.
The
And then
toy, you would press this thing, and it would split in half and explode.
You had a plunger that you
How
would do like
funny.
this, and he'd break apart.
It goes back to the toy.
That's
the
great.
genius of these things sometimes. But
I
yes.
quickly just want to touch on Andra because I adore
Mhm.
Andra, and Andra is a
Mhm.
redo of an old character from the Star Comics series, who was a
Hmm.
very boring Tila, watered down Tila knockoff. She was angrier than Tila, but she was pretty much just a Tila knockoff. So I really like sort of how they took that character and evolved her into somebody more interesting and different. That is Tila, and she was Tila's friend in the old comic series, but like she showed up in a couple panels and she was just kind of boring.
Mhm.
And not very interesting. And but because she was a lady in MOTU, she had a bit of a fan base because there aren't a lot of ladies. So I'm just saying, I dug that they took that character and made her not a knockoff of Tila, but paid homage to the actual roots of her being Tila's friend. And in the comic, Andra was in line to take over for Captain of the Guard from Tila because Tila's role was evolving in the comic. So anyway, just wanted to say that I adore Andra. She's really fun.
Andra's actually and Smetty's saying that it's Kevin Smith's wife, but it's Tiffany Smith. It's not she has the last name Smith, but it's not his wife. Tiffany Smith is much younger. She was on Collider Hero. Was it Collider Heroes? Like I used to watch the Collider stuff. They did like Collider movie talk or whatever. And she was recently
she was in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 as Orgo Corp host Freniki.
She played like the royal. What's that person's name? I don't know. The woman who married into the royal family recently. The sort of
Meghan Markle.
Yeah.
They have a thing on that already.
And so,
I mean, she kind of looks like her.
Yeah, totally. But she, anyway. So like, that's who that actor.
Oh yes, Becoming Royal TV movie.
But I love, and also they kind of did some hints. She mentions her grandfather, I think, at one point, and there's like, is there maybe some connection to another character who in the 2000X series trained Duncan? So there's a lot of like Decker, a lot of like cool little stuff like that. I just bring that up to kind of point out that they really did comb a lot of things to Johnny's point earlier. And yeah, we had Stinkor at the beginning of this, voiced by Snoochie Boochies. What's his name? Kevin Smith's homie, the skinny dude, the dude who had a bout or still bout with addiction. Silent Bob and
Jay
and Silent Bob.
Jason Mewes. It's Jason Mewes, who's like Kevin Smith's long life.
Yeah, Kevin Smith's wife Jennifer wasn't. She's pretty much just transitioned into like writing and executive producing stuff.
Yeah, she was in. Was it Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back? But
yeah,
I put the link to her Wikipedia in the chat.
She was one of the Fox 4. I mean, the
totally.
Totally not Fox Force Fight for copyright and trademark purposes, but yeah, no, Tiffany Smith is different. She's way too young to be Kevin Smith's wife.
She's like great. She really
like
is
in her
like
late to mid 20s. Kevin Smith is a fossil.
Yeah.
So yeah, too young to be his wife.
A fossil.
I'm just saying, I'm tired of old dudes hooking up with young women. Like, I'm just gonna say he's too old for her, and he's happily married. So there you go. Stay away from Tiffany.
He really is happily married.
And you know, like I had several friends named Tiffany. It's not the first time I've told a gross old man to stay away from a Tiffany. So
I think we're alone now.
It's a circle of life.
I think we all have. Okay.
Her, you old
I know we need to move on to episode 2.
Episode 3. Episode 3.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Real quick,
okay,
we
go
totally
ahead.
skipped the beginning. I just got to say the way the show started, two things. It started with all that cool concept art, like from the action figures. If you remember, there's like this narrator, and that was beautiful. It was a lot of old Mattel style art or Mattel art. And then it jumps right into the situation where you see this hooded character, and you're like, I was curious to ask you, Kayla, what you thought of that, because we kind of find out it's He-Man.
I figured
what did you think was going on?
Oh,
He-Man comes in on a horse
in the first episode,
very beginning.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think when I first watched it, I don't know. I was kind of confused because I thought it was just like, I didn't think it was happening at the same time. So I was like, oh, okay, that's He-Man. But then once, he started going for sorceress, I was like, oh, okay, this is obviously someone else pretending to be He-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought that was kind of cool. It was totally like in media, and like let's just start in the middle of the action and
sliced it together too.
Yeah.
I did like that. Yeah. Okay, episode 3, the most dangerous man in Eternia. Summary. Tila and Andra find Man-at-Arms as well as Beastman, Orko, and Roboto. They tell Man-at-Arms to go help Sorceress. Yes,
just gonna say
kept thinking that the entire time. They tell him to go help Sorceress and Cringer. And on the way to Subternia, they get stopped by Merman, and Man-at-Arms comes to the rescue. And Merman ends up helping them get to Subternia, and Man-at-Arms leaves to help Sorceress, and they use the Havoc staff to open the gates into Subternia. Which Subternia, Preternia, Eternia, why? Why do we have to...
Because there's a trademark copyright.
Middle Earth.
They want to keep using.
Sorry.
So that
but it's just Middle Earth. There's no before Earth. There's no after Earth.
Well, yeah, actually, we are in After Earth.
Yeah.
Middle Earth is our prehistory.
Preternia is from the old Mattel toys when they were going to do.
No, that's not a thing, Brick. Good try. It's not a thing.
But what about
I'm
Third
pretty
Earth?
sure I remember the internet and all these people who were trying to tell me the real history, and I'm pretty sure Brick's right.
Okay. But yeah, and then it's also called Eternos.
That's
city.
the palace. Yeah.
Oh, that's the city.
Eternos is like the city, maybe the country, and Eternia is the planet.
Eternia is the planet.
It's the kingdom of Eternos, I believe.
Yeah.
So
Eternia is the planet, and then it's part of. But it's part. What's the system of planets called?
I actually don't think it has a name.
It's never been named.
Because when they show the magic going out, it's not just Eternia that's affected. It's the rest of the planets.
Yeah, it shows like I think one of those is supposed to be Etheria, which is the ultimate Despondo.
Because then they say Orko's from another.
He's from Trala.
Oh, yeah, he is from Trala,
which is another
dimension
planet, or I think they say dimension.
Yeah, it's a dimension.
It's either dimension or universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so my notes are the Holy Sprocket K, which that was the first time I watched this. The second time I realized they said something in the Holy Sprocket. I was like, oh, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. They're trying to make it sound like that. It's a cult. Got it.
Trinity.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, so now Beastman's on their side too. Which my next note is Beastman definitely bottoms Evil Lyn, like for sure.
Yeah, he's on Evil Lyn's side.
Yeah,
he's on whatever side Evil Lyn's on, he's there.
Yeah, and he bottoms her. And then how Duncan says, "My sun and moon."
What a time to come back.
Yeah, really.
Welcome
I wrong? Am I wrong, Johnny?
Nope.
Am I wrong?
No.
Okay.
Is it this one?
Codependence.
The Horde Empire. That's possible.
Pulling out the receipts.
That map is amazing. If it's the whole universe, right? Galaxy.
Whoa. What is this from?
Classics.
Can I make yourself
He was a subscriber.
There you go.
This is really hard to.
And there are smaller versions of those. And,
Careful
It's
with
just
that.
you, Johnny.
Careful with that.
and one of
I
the
can't
books-
see the screen behind it. Let me find.
Now we go on a. We're now
We're going on an
travel through
adventure.
time and space to the far-flung planet Eternia and its sister planet Infinita. Oh wait, Infinita has been retconned out of existence. Never mind. There is no Infinita. Only Zool. I'm sorry.
Only
There's no
Zool.
Zool either.
There's Eternia.
Okay. But what's the whole thing called?
Infinita's right there.
Oh,
Allison.
Infinita.
Oh, they brought it back. Yeah, they never
It
talked
doesn't-
about it.
Your
Evil's-
hero, Spectre Creative, brought it back.
He is my. He is the wind beneath my wings. The wind beneath
And
my
by that
wings.
you mean your farts.
If it was filled by eggs, corn, and sorrow,
There's also
then yeah.
Huh. Wait.
Preternia.
Yeah. Is there
Candy
Subternia?
Mountain.
Which also Candy Mountain, Charlie.
There's Subternia.
Turnia.
Ooh,
Um,
Procrustes.
which also you would think like Subternia makes sense to me,
Mhm.
like subterranean. But Preternia makes it seem like it's before Eternia.
Well, that's accurate. So originally, Preternia was the distant past. They changed. The people above
and they
us were moving
created
furniture,
Eternia?
moving
Okay,
kids
I'm gonna have to
and
make you big again.
Yeah, so
Stop
they changed
pulling up
Preternia
maps.
to what it is in the show, so it's
Yep.
different.
Got it.
And that is
literally-
something a lot of
They're
fans,
like Middle Earth copy paste.
where did Middle Earth copy and paste it from? Like the Bible? I don't know. Ancient history.
Well, They definitely copy and paste something from Tolkien in this in next episode, I believe. All right, I have two more notes. Or no, I have a few more notes. He says my sun and moon to Tila, and I was like, are we in Game of Thrones now?
Yeah, that one was weird to me.
Yeah, and poor Orko lost his magic. I was so sad. And then we see Zaddy, man at arms, as I like to call him, without his armor.
Once you watch Filmation, you won't be sad Orca lost his magic. I'm just saying.
Okay.
I've prayed for
Okay.
many times. And so
Okay.
is his magic.
You almost killed Cringer in the first episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It was very a la Loki this season. I had PTSD watching that. And I was like, what's Duncan's secret? Why does this keep happening? People keep saying, I like have a secret I want to tell you, blah, blah, blah. Like it was him, it was sorceress, like fucking Adam. Like everyone has fucking secrets. What the
And
fuck
she
is going
won't-
on here?
She won't let them tell her, so
She won't let them tell her. Well, this one I think Evil Lynn disrupts, and she's like, no more family
That's
drama.
true. Yeah.
But
Well, let's
Tila
take the watch she
stops
said.
Adam later on from saying
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
And Zaddy to the rescue, and that's my last note.
Ba-dum-bum.
So
Any thoughts on episode 3?
I just want to say I love Kevin Conroy. He's great. But it's not the same. It doesn't sound like this. That's how Merman sounded in the
I
Filmation
like.
cartoon.
Oh, I liked. So I
Wow,
liked
how did you
Merman
do that?
with his
Just-
mouth? This is why Johnny's
You
popular
literally
with the
sound
ladies.
digitized.
It's supposed to sound like I'm underwater.
If there are
But
any
it sounds
single
like you
ladies,
just
out
like
there,
a voice. Voice.
single ladies out there, look into what Johnny could do with that in certain places. Anyway,
Anywho, okay.
I gotta, at least every time Johnny and I are on a stream together, I gotta try to find him a lady or a gentleman, whatever Johnny wants. Johnny should have a gentleman, a picture what that could do with your cake. Anyway, I don't know why it suddenly sounded like somebody took my spaghetti cartoon guy, but whatever. Anyway.
Anywho.
But yeah, love Kevin Conroy, but I just can't take, like, Merman has to have the gurgly.
Are you okay, Brett?
This whole time, he
Thank
just
you.
had, like, he just didn't clear his throat during Filmation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He had a
allergic
frog stuck in his
reaction.
throat for
He had
ages.
an allergic reaction to Skeletor's skin condition. Skeletor's skin got in his gills.
Was this the episode with it was the episode with Roboto. You were just saying that. I don't know. Again, there's just a lot of clever pulling from
This
the
is what
lore.
the dog is doing right now on the bed.
Did you catch that? Well, they said it. So Roboto was essentially made, his consciousness was patterned after Duncan.
Mm-hmm.
And
but
it was made by Duncan. So it's you're my father, Tila's my sister, and I am you. Like that.
I think I'm a clone now.
Yeah, he's
There's
kind of like
two of me.
Yeah, which is why I was like, well, I'm gonna go. I can go because if you know how to make this sword thing happen, I can do it. So I just thought there was a lot of stuff in there that on the one hand they were trying to introduce it to a new audience, but I really think so much of the story to grasp some of it is relies on you knowing a lot of these things. So
yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
that's funny.
This whole time, he's
I
guess
prefer that story to the other Roboto story before, where he came from a planet of robots. So, I think that was
in mini comics.
I think that was in the UK comics, and one of the magazines I think had that as a story.
It's very Doctor Who.
So, it was very well, it was the UK, so they had to rip off Doctor Who every chance they got.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other thoughts, or should we move on to episode 4?
Other thoughts? Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, that was Filmation. Never mind. I just Googled it on Wikipedia, and Filmation made him a space explorer from Robotica. Anyway, continue.
You're fine. Okay, episode 4 is Land of the Dead. In Subternia, Scareglow separates the group into 3. Tila by herself, Orko and Lynn in Trala, and Andra, Beastman, and Roboto. I think they're technically in Subternia. It just looks like a wasteland of sorts, and then zombies come after them, and bats that are on fire bats or whatever. And they all kind of face their fears in different ways. And Tila with her destiny, which, that's when find out Tila is a little more than just Tila. And Orko with his name and magic abilities. And Andra with zombies, which, she figures out how to get past them. But it was kind of I was hoping hers would be a little bit deeper than that, like Orko's and Tila's were. Yeah. And so Tila conquers her fear and everyone is brought back and she gets half the sword. Lynn takes the sword to open up a gate to Preternia, but Scareglow tries to stop them and unfortunately Orko dies, saving them. Moment of silence for Orko.
Pour one out.
Okay.
What did you say? Whose did you say you were hoping it was a little bit more? Was it Evelyn's?
Andra?
Oh,
no,
Andra's, yeah.
Yeah, her fear, she was able to conquer the zombies and the what were they called? Fire bats?
Shadow beasts. The shadow beast, the actual creatures, my interpretation was, because Roboto was seeing the shadow beasts, he said they're shadow beasts, but not like any we've seen before. They were manifesting their fears. So they were fire bats for Beastman because he was apparently afraid of fire bats. And Andra, I guess, is afraid of zombies.
Yeah.
It's not illogical to be afraid of the zombie apocalypse.
Totally. I was just hoping it was something a little deeper than that.
Well, especially when you've gone to hell.
But they have 22 minutes an episode, so only so much you can do. That's what they said. Yep. So my notes on this episode are: Orko reminds me of a wizard that always is struggling to cast the spell, or Ron Weasley. But there's other characters, and I'm trying to. There's totally one that something that I've seen either in a movie or TV show where there's a wizard or witch or someone with magical abilities. and they're always trying to cast spells and they just can never quite get it right, and I can't fucking think of it. So everyone give me their ideas.
His name
wasn't there a character in the new D&D movie that was like that?
That's exactly what I was looking up. It is
Sesame Street
Simon, the sorcerer.
Oh yeah, the Pokemon.
The one with the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was pretty much the same.
There was
something. Thing.
There's definitely something else though that I've seen more than that, because I've only seen that once. So if anyone has any ideas, please help me, because I tried Googling it and got nada. And then I was like, Orko is Oracle, and then I was like, stupid parents. Not for naming him that, but just for like how they treated him.
Pressure.
Yeah. And I loved the Evil Lyn and Orko bonding. I thought that was really cute. And then Roboto is so polite when fighting. It was so funny.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's gonna need medical attention."
Yeah.
Like Baymax.
And I loved the scene of Tila embracing her fear and her power and her destiny, and ultimately she didn't have to give her fear to Scareglow to get the half of the sword. And then I was like, in all caps, I'm sorry, did they just copy the Doors of Moria, aka the Doors of Durin? Because copy paste. Copy
exactly
paste.
The
exactly.
What did you call them?
What, Speak Friend here?
Yes. Speak Friend and Enter in Lord of the Rings. The first movie, The Fellowship, when they're going into Moria and Gandalf has to try to figure out the password. And it's like a door that's etched into the mountain that glows.
Oh,
just look up Doors of Moria or the Doors of Durin. It'll come up on Google. But they pretty much copied and pasted it. Yes, quip. Yes, Speak Friend and Enter. Yes. And so when that they literally copied and pasted it into the show, which is fine by me because it's cool.
There's a lot of copying and pasting in this. There were a lot of direct homages to other stuff.
Oh,
too.
I'm sure.
But yes,
I'm sure. And Enduring. Yep. There's a lot of names for it. And then it opens up to Eternia, and I was like, Eternia, Leo pointing. I was like, I know that playset. Which also, I had this question later on. Why don't they call it the Preternia playset? Because it's technically in Preternia.
The original playset from... Oh, go ahead. Do it.
I was going to say, because it was... When it was released as a toy, it was just Eternium playset. They just... In this, they put it in Preternia.
Okay.
Story-wise, yeah. Because the original toy back in the day, that was the name of the playset, was Eternia, and it was like... There wasn't much more to it. They didn't. There was. It
wasn't in the show.
It wasn't in the show. The planet was
Eternia. Was this the first time we've seen it in a show?
Yeah.
Yes.
In the show, yeah.
Whoa. That's crazy. And also after seeing it, I'm like, oh, no, I want one. Don't have
because that was that playset was 87, right? That was at the very end of the run. So Filmation was long done by then. A couple years.
But yeah, I was very sad about Orko. But yeah, Adam returns, but then I'm like, oh wait, he's in heaven, so not really returning. Yeah, that's all my notes for episode 4. Any other thoughts?
Well, Troll and nursery rhymes are pretty dark.
Yes. Yes.
If that was the...
Yeah.
Because Orko, he's like, oh, well, here's how it ends. And you think that it's going to get better, but it doesn't. It gets worse.
Yeah.
I agree. The Evelyn and Orko like bonding is a highlight. And I think it's a highlight for a lot of people for the show in general. And when they were in the illusory Trolla, when those shadow beasts, that shadow Trollin was really creepy, like the
all
Orko
the little,
with the red eyes.
Yeah, and especially all the little Orcos came together and formed it, which also reminded me of is it Snow White when they're like all the eyes and they turn into really scary eyes?
They're trees?
No, they're not
Maybe.
trees. They're just eyes and they're like creatures and okay. Anyways, yeah, no, I liked the bonding scene. And yeah, they came together and used their magic and that was cool. Any other thoughts on episode 4?
There's a lot that happens here with Tila and Scareglow, that whole exchange, and you were kind of alluding to it. And I kind of dance around some of the stuff, but like clearly they're alluding to something, right? And like her big fear that she may not even be fully consciously aware of, that the whole idea of like, you know, of your fate, that you're pretending to be nothing or whatever. I forget what it was. You're pretending to be ordinary. That's
ordinary.
What it was.
Yeah.
But you are so much more. Again, and but that's couched in. That's why the people that you're angry at, the people who you're so mad at because they lied to you. He's even sort of saying they were trying to protect you, and she's like, from what? You know, like this again, the secret fate or whatever. I love that. There's a lot of stuff that'll be like sort of shown later, but it also sets her up maybe to be more receptive when she gets another opportunity to see Adam.
Yeah, which I totally related to this, and I was like, I don't know if I've seen a character like this before, but that was something that was told to me because I was like a really good student in school, and then like I struggled a lot in high school and college, like because I had to work really, really hard to do well, and especially with stuff that like with sports or just like in school in general. And like I didn't have a fear of failure. Like I had a fear of like success, of like doing well. And I think a lot of that also has to do with like a fear of just like I don't like standing out. I don't like the attention of that. So it was so interesting to see a character that was going through that too. I was like, whoa, that's crazy, because I don't think I've ever seen that before, and it's not really talked about as much. Like fear of failure is talked about as much, but like fear of success isn't as much. So yeah, that was cool to see. Hi, Terrence.
Can I just pause for a second and like based on everything we've said so far and remind us that this show was called MOTU Revelations, and so like I feel like there's so much of that. The reveal that Adam was He-Man, the reveal that there's something being revealed to her about the nature of her life.
Scareglow that says revelation during this scene.
Oh, does he say it in this episode?
I think someone does. Okay. I think it's I meant to write it down, but in one of, I think it was Scareglow that said it.
There's just a lot of that running through this show that I think was really cool. Even with Evelyn and Orko, like there's a whole, they did a comic series that I kind of showed earlier of the young girl, the young Evelyn. I don't know if you saw it earlier, but it's a young Evelyn basically being about to be cannibalized by her parents who are so poor and hungry. But knowing that backstory was really helpful to kind of see what Evelyn ends up doing for Orko and with Orko, and then later even with Tila, even though they kind of banter back and forth and it's a little bit like filled with anger and tension. There's a lot of stuff there that like, oh my God, it's super rich to just sort of see this character who, Evelyn in particular, who was like pretty one-dimensional, right? She's Evelyn, she's bad. But they did, you know, you don't get Cersei, Lannister, Lena Headey to like do something super simple, flat. Like, yeah. And that a lot of folks, I think, were frustrated with the notion that Evelyn is like, oh, good, but I don't know. We haven't really talked a whole lot about it yet. And it comes up a lot in the second part too, but it's clearly here. She has a complicated relationship with Skeletor. You see it in that first episode. It's like super abusive. And she herself
admits it to Tila Was that episode 2 or 3?
Oh yeah, Tila.
3
Yeah,
when they're
how-
is it when they're on the boat?
Yeah, it's when they're on the
Yeah,
boat.
that's
And
3.
she's like, I want to be a master of the universe. Like,
Yep.
fuck him. And like, yeah, you go, girl. But then she goes, but I think she's still, like what Allison said earlier, is she's still looking out for herself. So I think she thinks her best bet at doing that is with Skeletor. Especially, yeah, because like now he has the sword. So obviously that's going to be easier or not a safer bet, but a better bet to go with Skelly at the end of the day. So,
and I also think
Yeah.
that she's just abused. Like she's in an abusive relationship that like colors everything, how she sees the world. And again, just her backstory, it's like tragic. And
have we gotten that? We haven't gotten that in the show at this point.
We haven't gotten it in the show.
So yeah, so I'm trying to sort of, and that's not really, but I am glad you mentioned the abuse thing because you know, like the emotional manipulation. You know, because Evelyn is a very strong, very powerful character. She's also a woman, but like I try not to talk about Evelyn that way because I think now that as I get older, it's far more interesting to me to talk about characters who just happen to be a woman who are strong and powerful. And for Evelyn, I think it's really the womanness of it obviously is important because it is really, there are a lot of women who are in abusive, you know, in the real world, and abusive relationships with spouses or family, or, you know, like your parents can emotionally abuse and well into adulthood. You know, and they give Evelyn a little bit of both of those. She's still a really strong, powerful, capable, motivated character. And like all of that abuse and all of that, you know, that's some of her conflict, even though she's strong and powerful and actually probably more adept with magic than Skeletor will ever be. She is playing the subservient role and she's, you know, like I said earlier, Evelyn is out for Evelyn. And for whatever reason, she's determined Skeletor. So she's even sort of subjugating her own wants and needs because for whatever reason, Skeletor is what she wanted for so long. So it's really, again, it's, I do like your way of saying it, Brick, that it's modern 2020 storytelling rather than more adult. And that is what we expect from our fiction. And I think, you know, like I've always been drawn to Evelyn. Again, on my channel, there are a couple Evelyn coloring videos that talk about my childhood love of her. But also excuse the whiny cat in the background. He's 7 months old now, and he's a teenager. But so I really like, again, like I know some people were like, it was about Tila and Evelyn and Andra and not He-Man and Skeletor, but the show is Masters of the Universe. And I think heroes and villains are made better by their big past that surrounds them. And I feel like Tila and Evelyn getting all of this depth and all of this
title.
All of this sort of
the S in the title.
It's not called He-Man. It's called.
It's still. I argue that it still was primarily about He-Man and Skeletor, like because it's all about their absence.
Yeah,
like it's all about how everybody reacts to the fact that He-Man and Skeletor are gone.
Like we're getting growth from Tila and Evelyn, and them moving beyond their roles as they were to what the new roles are going to be. I mean, and the new relationships. I think we all characters. Are. It's just, you know, it's it's
the platinum blonde. It's the mommy.
Yeah, it's modern storytelling for a childhood thing where it was much more. It was about selling toys, and like you're going to sell more He-Man and Skeletor figures than your Tila and Evelyn. So like, you know, the show is structured in a certain way because of that. And I think this is sort of the result. People want more nuanced characters. And if you're a new person coming to these shows, you know, like, for instance, you, Kayla, this is your first real Masters of the Universe stuff. So for you, like, this nuance to all of this cast, Tila, the teenager makes himself known. So if you as somebody new to this who doesn't have all it's a hit and run. So if you don't have sort of all of that, you're coming into this getting a really rich tapestry of characters that's more than just
Yeah.
He-Man and Skeletor swinging swords at each other. And that's
The
sort of what I
tapestries.
think MOTU needs, like to sort
Mhm.
of evolve and adapt and get newer people who are not just the kids. There's a whole, between 18 to like 57, which, like there are a bunch of people who don't know MOTU. So
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
And I
like,
think that's what's great about it is that I mean this show in particular, because that's all I have to go off of,
no.
is that I can see kids watching it and enjoying it, and plenty of people have said in the chat that their kids watched it and loved it.
Yep.
And clearly we love it as adults too, and I think that's obviously there are some animated stuff that is geared just towards kids, and
Yeah.
there's stuff that's geared
Mhm.
for adults.
Mhm.
But like when you can do both, like that's amazing. Like I think that's very telling, because that's not easy to do.
Well, and for me, this is what my storylines when I played as a kid. It was way more about Tila and Eve. Obviously, for me, it was more Tila and Evelyn than it was He-Man's. Like I didn't have my brother had He-Man and Skeletor. I had Tila and Evelyn and cool villains and heroes that worked for like Tila was the star of my MOTU. Evelyn was the star, and I think that kind of some people have lost sight that not everyone. Like some people's favorite character is Moss Man. Like the way the toy line worked, even though there was a focus on He-Man and Skeletor, like MOTU was kind of set up in a way where if your favorite character was Cyclone or Moss Man or whoever, you totally didn't need He-Man and Skeletor because the characters got enough backstory that you could create whatever you wanted with it. So it's disappointing because in some ways when people focus on the He-Man and Skeletorness of it, because it limits how big and how rich the world actually is and how much more we could get from this world if we could get to a place where like you could do a show with of Masters of the Universe and like a typical 22 episode show where we get 4 episodes that are all just Roboto or just this character, just that, where it's like they're getting their own stories.
Yeah. Exactly. I think it really fills out the world well. And going into it, like I totally expected more He-Man and Skeletor, and like I didn't miss them. Granted, haven't watched anything before, but also at the end of part 1, clearly they're coming back in part 2. So I'm like, oh well, I'm gonna get it then for sure. So yeah, speaking of, all right, episode 5, The Forge at the Forest of Forever. Prince Adam and co. mourn Orko, and then they get the other half of the Sword of Power from Hero, and Tila and Adam go find King Grayskull, and Adam gets a quick pep talk from Moss Man along the way. And they use Roboto to reforge the sword, and which unfortunately is to his demise. And they return to Eternia to the Hall of Wisdom. And just as they're restoring the magic, right when Adam is saying, I have the power, he is stabbed in the back by Skeletor, who had been hiding in Evil Lynn's staff orb thingy. And Skelly then grabs the sword and becomes master of the universe.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. Summary.
I honestly forgot that Evelyn didn't know that he was in the skull of the
I was
Havoc
totally
staff.
expecting her to have known that.
This whole time I'm thinking, she knows, and she's like, she's being duplicitous and pretending that she doesn't know that he's in there. But then I didn't recall until the end of this episode where she was like, what? And he explains what was going on, that she had no idea that he was in the staff.
Yeah.
I love that struggle for her again. It's what Orko said, right? And that's kind of a thing that she has to figure it out, right? Just like I love that, because constantly if you're watching for Evil Lynn throughout these first 4 then 5 episodes, you're kind of unsure, like, what is she doing? Is she with him? Is she not? Even in the first episode, when right before Skeletor dies, she's surprised by a lot of the things that he does. So there's this notion of like, I'm with him, I'm his second in command, but like I have no idea what he's planning, what he's doing. So there's always this weird like dynamic between them. And then later when she's like, hiding as in disguise, you're kind of like not sure, she's trying to trick them to go to, and you're like, oh, this is all bad. But it turns out she's doing that because she's actually trying to help the sorceress. Like there's this constant back and forth that this show plays with her that I absolutely love.
Yeah. I'm excited to see more of that play out in part 2. So my first note is he can't actually be dead though. I don't want Orko to die. This is too sad. But I loved Evil Lynn's "You were a fool" comment when they're like all saying the nice things about him, and I was like, wow, that's kind of perfect. And then my next comment is, "Ooh, bird dino, I want it." That so yeah, who's the character that looks like Sorceress that's with King Grayskull?
I don't know how to pronounce it. Ungar Kun or some such. And she's
got a very Sumerian sounding name.
She is from Filmation. She was in the original Filmation story. She was the Sorceress of Grayskull before. I almost said the Sorceress, which is a spoiler. I had to stop myself. Before the current Sorceress.
Okay.
They obviously have adapted that a little, where she is sort of like in the past, huh?
No.
Interesting.
So yeah, so she, which is interesting. Hopefully, we get a little bit more of that, because I found that very interesting that they went with her as sort of a previous champion of the way He-Man is, whereas almost said the Sorceress's name again. Sorry, not myself. The
job,
current
Allison.
Sorceress, the way, because she's very much stuck in the castle. She can't leave the castle. Like, she is a guardian of Grayskull. She's not a champion of Grayskull. So I sort of enjoyed that they and we don't know in this sort of continuity whether or not she was before the Sorceress that's currently the Sorceress. I almost did it again. It's really hard because this is how my brain parses it. Because if I say it, like it's gonna
don't do it. Don't do it, Allison.
Try not to. But so yeah, I liked that. I liked all of the sort of previous quote unquote He-Mans that were there. I liked Wondar there, and a lot of this.
Okay, that was Wondar. I was wondering.
Yeah. A lot of this is fan service because a lot of these are sort of previous He-Man characters that have been in the toy lines or in different continuities. So this was sort of and for me, this was really a clear indication that we were not in Filmation, 100% in Filmation continuity, and that Revelation is its own continuity that draws from all the different threads. Because all those characters, there's some of it is some of like Wondar becomes He-Man through classic.
But they don't say his name.
Yeah, so there are so a lot of these characters are sort of classics, retcons of previous story stuff from all the different eras that existed before. And say what I will about Scott Nutlick. When he was putting all of the storylines together, he did try to put everything
you really feel
into a coherence. No, not coherent, because it definitely wasn't coherent. Into a consistent,
connected. Everything was connected.
Everything was connected, and I do appreciate that attempt because it did bring in a lot of characters, which is ultimately when you're selling action figures and you're OCD about collecting, like some of us are. It gives you more character options. So that is my thing I appreciate about that whole vibe in classics was the attempt to bring it all into a single consistent line so we could get all of these action figures.
Yep.
So anyway, but yeah, that was my sign that Kevin Smith is doing something similar. It's just not quite as hand-fisted or as clunky. So.
Hand-fisted. And then my next note is King Grayskull with hot face emojis, and I was like, it's Allstate Man, aka Jonas Blaine in the unit, aka President Palmer in 24. Because I had such a crush on him. And just his voice is great.
He's like great.
Yeah, I think so. Rook, going back, like all of that whole section in Preternia, they kind of turned into like a Valhalla kind of a thing, right? Like your reward for being a. At first, I wasn't sure if you had to be a champion, but then I was like, no. Well, either champion or a sorceress, right? Because I think it's implied that we both got like champions, like other He-Mans before who wielded the sword, and potentially another sorceress. But then Mossman's there, so no, I think it's pretty clear that other heroic people can enter this sort of Valhalla place. And I love that they kind of were able to pull from like all of those, like Hero, who was supposed to come out in the old line but never did, definitely wasn't in Filmation, and then King Grayskull, which was a creation from the 2000X Mike Young Productions, that later got like worked into classics pretty heavily. That was like a fan favorite character, but of course they changed it. And they changed him, and they, changed him from being. I was texting you earlier today, Kayla, saying like the original King Grayskull was like totally a He-Man clone. It was like He-Man with longer hair, looked almost exactly the same, had a cape, blonde hair, blue eyed, and I really appreciated the even just for like variety, like like all of our different champions. They're actually all different characters with their own unique story. And of course, as a person of color myself, who always was like wanting to see more representation as a kid, was again really cool. 21st century storytelling, well, like 21st century like sensibility to not ignore other human beings. And so whether that's women or, people of color or whatever. And so
there's wait. You mean that there's more than straight or cishet white dudes out there?
I mean, I've heard. And so
I didn't know that.
I love that. And that was like what I was alluding to earlier. Like, that's why I did that first video with King Grayskull intentionally, because like, I just didn't like a lot of the reviews and a lot of even well-meaning people talking about the figure when it came out. Even like I think people were really well-meaning and wanted to support Revelation, but
King Grayskull.
Yeah, but well, they weren't the folks that when I say well-meaning folks, they'd review it, but they kind of even had to like almost like cater to those folks by saying like, well, I know there's a lot of controversy. Like, no, F that. There's no controversy. This is dope. Look, here's a dope new King Grayskull. He's black. He's badass. He's got dreads. Deal with it. Like, this is cool. And so that's what I wanted to do with the channel.
Sleep any day.
What makes He-Man more unique?
Sell me insurance.
Grayskull isn't just He-Man with some dreadlocks.
And if you again, the prequel comic, which I know is sort of like out of bounds a little, and it's not really spoilers, but they kind of go into like the history of the two swords. King Grayskull was the first, and they talk about that here, to bring those two swords together, and that like Hero is actually one of his sons. Like, he has two sons. So there's a lot of just really cool things happening with this, in addition to that inclusion of the Wundar character. Vicor, who was another like thing that came out of classics, that was like a direct homage to an early concepts of who He-Man was supposed to be, totally looked just like that look. And I love the idea of like, well, this is now Preternia, which is a Valhalla where all the heroes, like, there's like this notion in my brain, like, man, can you imagine if we went back and did just like Wundar stories? And like a whole series of like a series of different champions of Eternia with their versions of the sorceress. Like, I would love that. I would love to see that that sort of like what they're doing with Star Wars. Oh, let's go to the High Republic, or let's go to expand
There's
the
a lot
world.
of different places. Yeah, it can go for sure.
So it was so cool. And that's what excited me about this show. Like it just kept ramping it up for me. It's like, oh wow, we're telling adult stories.
Yeah.
Oh wow, people die. Oh wow, and now you're like building out the world, which really happened. Like a lot of that happens as the show progresses. So I love it. I love this episode.
Yeah. Big fan. Yeah, I think having representation of everyone, because like I said before, not everyone is a cishet white dude. Like showing other people is great no matter what you're watching. So appreciate that. And I feel like I've learned a lot from you, Prick, especially about King Grayskull, because like I knew about this before I even watched it because of you. So it was cool to like have that knowledge going into it, which I like was like, oh yeah, there's a character. Okay, yeah, it's him. I got it.
Remember it? Yeah.
Same with Hero. I was like, oh yeah, there's a character named Hero. I was like, that's so funny.
The fact that King Grayskull's sorry. I was just gonna add to that, King Grayskull's partner, the one we were talking about earlier that looks like the sorcerers, doesn't even speak English. That was dope.
Yeah. And there wasn't like a translation for her at all. But yeah, I totally forgot there was actually a Hero, and I was like, he seems like kind of a dodo who just like plays his part in the world a little bit. And also with Mossman, I was like, oh, he's a lot more like peaceful than I thought he would be. I thought he would be more like kind of like Beastman. So that, and this is literally just based off of like toys. And yeah,
he did have the same Beastman head.
Yeah. And then R.I.P. Roboto. And then I was like, "Aw, father-daughter reunited at last." And then when Cringer and Adam reunited, so cute. That, you know, all those like puppy dog videos of reuniting with their owners. I was like, "Oh, this is the same thing but animated."
Who was the father-daughter reunited?
Oh, Duncan and Tila.
Oh, at the end. Oh.
Yes. These are just my notes because I already did the summary. And Grayskull, let's see. And then in all caps, God damn it, Skelly, no! Like just when he's about to say it, fucking stabs him. And then I was like, but He-Man can't actually be dead now. It's like he can't die twice. Like he's gotta live. And then this is my comment that I mentioned earlier. I was like, damn it, Mommy Lynn, never trust a muscle mommy, I guess.
It's true.
And then I was like, what is this new Skelly's form that he has at the end? Because it's definitely different than his form he had before. His look. Does he have a different name now? Skelegod?
Yeah, that's the name of the figure, at least.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then my last note in all caps is, how am I supposed to not watch part 2 right away? God damn it. Yeah, he looks cool. He's like on his way to being Cosmic Skelly, being a Balrog, essentially.
Yeah, there's just a lot of
no comments.
That was the first figure, right? That was the first Masterverse figure that came out before the show even aired.
Yeah,
right?
there's a weird distribution thing that happened where that was
so like we didn't
Skelegod?
even know. Yeah, he was the very first Masterverse figure, came out before the show had even released. So it was kind of weird to get him before we even knew what it was gonna be, or how it was gonna tie in.
Am I gonna get a Cosmic Skelly, or is that from something else?
A Cosmic Skelly?
Okay, never mind.
You have something in your mind of what it looks like, and it's not that one?
He's literally called Cosmic Skeletor. It's the Balrog one that I have.
He's from the CGI series. He's not from this. He's from the CGI He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
Which is worth watching as well.
Yeah, he's definitely... Oh, where'd it go?
The Cosmic Terror Skeletor.
Why did it just scroll up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. He's peaceful and one with nature. Yeah, he's a Balrog. So now I have overall thoughts. Any other specific thoughts on episode 5 before I get into my overall thoughts? And then I have questions.
Proof in the pudding. There was a story reason too why I thought it was really interesting to have variety of the past champions and to show several of them, aside from just like, oh, that's cool, we're seeing the past champions. First, like story-wise, both Hero and King Grayskull have real strong connections to the original forging of that sword. So it was like, oh, that's cool. And then the notion that they're all there in their like buff-ass hero forms was a comment, right, about the character of Adam. Right?
Yeah.
They made that point of like
Flea
he's
Man.
the first. Yeah, they're like he's the first who wanted to be the other form.
Yeah,
They
which
specifically
Kayla
said
definitely
lesser form.
Lesser form, right?
Yeah.
As if it was a dig at him for
Worse.
choosing his
Yeah.
lesser, weaker form.
Which
And
Kayla totally gives a look like,
Yeah, because I think she's realizing a lot because she didn't understand him being He-Man, and I'm sure she had all sorts of assumptions, and she was angry at him and also kind of in denial. But I think in this moment, she's kind of like, I'm pausing now to understand who he is and what it was like to live this dual life. But at the end of the day, that was Adam. Like that's who he actually is. And there's all this like really cool lore about like, like, oh, well, if you're a champion and you're super powerful or whatever, like that's great. But it's really about the quality of the person, I think, that is given that and what they do with it. So I love it. And
not
we see
just
that
those accomplishments for sure.
Because we see that he not only chose that's the first hint. And then the later hint is that he's willing to give up paradise, basically.
Yeah, he can go back
the
there.
repercussions.
Yeah.
That's
huge.
I'm sorry, I'm geeking, but
No.
that's like this.
This is Geek the F Out.
This is a good show. And this is why I was like, I need to be on here because I'm so frustrated at the way this got trashed before the thing ever came out. That's all. Just that bothered me so much.
Unfortunately. I hate when that happens. And I feel like it just happens more and more these days. Like people were trashing like the Marvels before it came out. People were trashing Echo before it came out. People are trashing Madam Web before it's even out. Which, like, I get it. The trailer was not the best.
It's
but
Sony.
Yeah.
That's where I'm the track record in my brain. But.
Yeah, Sony too. But yeah, it's just very frustrating. It's like, are we not learning anything about not judging a book by its cover? Like, are we just going backwards in time at this point? Yeah. Anywho, yeah, anyone else have any thoughts on episode 5? I will say something I didn't write down. I did not see Skelly stabbing He-Man coming at all. That was not on my bingo card. When that happened, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I thought it was just going to end with He-Man restoring the power, and then next season would kind of be, or next part would be like a new storyline. But no, they really just left you on a cliffhanger with this one, which makes a lot more sense now why it was like part 1 and part 2 instead of like season 1, season 2, because that would be a really shitty cliffhanger to end on for like a while. Like, I know it still was a while, but yeah.
It was 4 months. It was July to November.
Oh, yeah. I actually think it was kind of bad for the show in some ways. But...
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation about that, how it probably would have been better received overall if they had just released all 10 episodes at the beginning. Because they were ready, from what I understood, they were all done. They just decided not to release.
I would have thought they would have done something like they've done with Stranger Things or You or any of their other big shows, just to get more subscribers and do 1 month and then another month just to get 2 months of membership. But like 4 months, damn. Yeah. I would be a little pissed. Hello. Yes, very excited for Revolution. Yeah. Any other thoughts besides before we get into overall thoughts?
Just his face, like I thought was perfect. Like when Skeletor reveals himself, she's like genuinely confused, and to like talk about the sort of like subtext of the abuse stuff, he continued to like, even when she thought he was out of her life and she had chosen her own direction, he was like there the whole time and like manipulating her essentially and using her, which was wild. So I wasn't sure, like, where does this go? Does she all of a sudden like side with the good folks and say screw him? But it's
gonna take more than that.
She wanted
it's appropriately more complicated.
She wanted to, and you could tell it was.
She was like, I was beginning to like you kids.
Yep. And then she does. It quickly turns to this face. It's a really cool, nuanced thing. Power of the all, respect to the animators, the writers. Like, there's just a lot of cool things going on with the storytelling, both in terms of the script and the acting for sure, and the visual storytelling. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I will say for overall thoughts, I love in all caps how much of a focus there was on women/femme characters throughout the season. And I say that because like a lot of the male characters had a lot of like femme characteristics, had a lot of emotion to them, had a lot of feeling that's usually associated with women/femme characters. And I liked how it wasn't the stereotypical like girl team up scenes like there's been in, Infinity War Endgame, where it's like, here, we threw this in for you. Like, you happy? Like, they were like genuine stories. Like, they had their journeys, and, that was most of the show, or most of this part 1, at least. And like, they didn't need the dudes to rescue them. They instead teamed up with them, and they were equals to them. Like, they weren't the like damsel in distress or anything like that. And that was great to see, especially for a show whose main character, the one character most people know, is He-Man. Yeah. And it, like we were saying before, it's Masters of the Universe. It's not just He-Man. So like, it's great that they actually did that. So
I want to say,
that was cool. Sitting here, I was not expecting that.
I'm sitting here chuckling to myself. And if you see that, I'm not chuckling because of what Kayla's saying. I'm chuckling because what she said reminded me of The Boys and Girls Get It Done. Like their whole like satirical take on exactly what you're talking about. Like the end game scene where they all come together and it feels forced. It doesn't feel like natural.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's
it's just
why
like,
I was
here's your
I was
one
like
little
chuckling
scene
to myself.
you got.
I thought you were going to say that it was like
interacted.
Yeah, I thought you were going to laugh because there's a lot of stuff that like we having seen it, we know where it's going. So I wasn't. There's a lot of that happening too.
And I also like how I was able. I kind of mentioned this earlier. How I was able to still get some Easter eggs just from the toys, because I've seen nothing before, like the pine comment and other stuff that I can't think of right now. But and then I really appreciated the storyline of Tila and Duncan and the father-daughter. Like, I thought that was like a really good representation of that. And like, it wasn't like super layered, but like it definitely was a bit. So I really liked that. And it felt very real in this made up world. And I already said this before, but I was like, now it makes sense why I was in 2 parts with the big cliffhanger. So one of my first questions is, so Scareglow isn't Skeletor, or like, how is he related to Skeletor? Like, who's this dude?
Who is it?
Scareglow.
Oh, that threw me off too, actually, because there's something that he says to
Well,
says
he
something about like this, something you reckon or something. Oh, I remember that name or something like that, right?
Yeah, like he's a dead Skeletor.
Yep.
I think it's a throwback. So there was confusion when the figure released because the card for the figure said "Evil Ghost of Skeletor," which makes you think that it is Skeletor's ghost.
Yep.
But apparently the intention was it should more be like evil ghost that serves Skeletor, not that it is the evil ghost belonging, like it's Skeletor's evil ghost. Like that ghost.
Was on like Scott Nylick's director's commentary. Was he saying
so.
that was
Vintage.
Also what they said in the past too? Okay.
Yeah, that was the vintage figure. The card for the vintage.
Or no, I meant
said,
the intention behind the thing. Was he writing that into classic stuff, or was he saying, "Oh, I saw that. That's what they intended before"?
Yeah, I believe that's to my understanding that was the original intention, that it was a ghost that worked with Skeletor, not a ghost of Skeletor.
Yeah, sort of like Beastman is like evil henchman of Skeletor.
Yeah.
So which
So through the years, there's
which
been.
crew are you talking about?
You think he's talking about us, but
Us?
I don't know.
Oh, that's fair.
It don't matter.
Through the years, there's been like headcanons. Oh, God damn, I said the word. There's been.
You said your least favorite word.
I did. I hate that phrase. I don't know if you caught it on last night's Trek Retrek, but I hate that phrase. It's it's one of those things that just makes me irrationally angry.
I get it though.
Through the years, there's been like speculation and things, people like coming up with their own explanation for why, is it Skeletor's ghost or is it something else? So, and they kind of like lean into that in different medium over the years of exactly what Scareglow is. So I think it might have just been a nod to that.
Okay.
And I don't know either, but I do love the idea that he is sort of this, his realm is like the underworld, essentially, right? I love all that. And that he deals in fear as a way to either torment people in the afterlife or to provide them with a challenge, right? Like a Dagobah swamp scene or...
Yeah, because I totally thought going into this that Scareglow was just a version of Skeletor, just how we saw Skelegod, Cosmic Skeletor. Like I thought it was just another version. So once again,
I could see that
only
when
have
you
toys
have two
to go
characters,
off of.
and when you have two characters whose head is a skull, like I can see how that is easy to to think that they are one and the same.
And it goes back to what you said earlier, that like the entire time you thought that like Castle Grayskull was Skeletor's. That was what a lot of us thought as kids too. Like, because it's, I mean, it's a skeleton head, right? And then the other thing of that was, to go back to toys, like something that was really cool, like in the original was this whole thing of like the power sword being split in half and there being sort of like, a dark side, light side, maybe thing kind of going on, was totally straight from the vintage toy that never made it into Filmation. Like originally the old toy, He-Man came with a silver sword, half of a sword. Like literally, if you flipped it over to the back, it was like flat and like had a little weird clip in it. And Skeletor came with a mirror image backside purple one, and you would combine them to make a whole sword, which was like a cool play feature. They never they didn't explore that at all in Filmation. So I kind of like that piece.
They did in the mini comics. Like in the mini comics, it was two separate swords that could combine together. They almost sort of did it in Filmation when they merged the Sword of the Ancients into the Power Sword in that one episode. So they kind of nod to it there with two swords combining into one, but that's stretching it.
That's what they said. Along the same lines, I thought Man-at-Arms was going to be more jockey / bro-like, but he was actually super caring, charismatic human person. I also didn't realize that Grayskull was an actual person And then I was like, oh yeah, King Grayskull. I was like, oh, okay. I think putting King in front of it makes me remember it, but just Grayskull is just like, what?
Are we
and
at the point now where Grayskull has been a character longer than Grayskull wasn't a character? So like from the inception of the toy line up until King Grayskull was a character in the 2000 X series. And the
Well,
2000
that was
X series to now.
2002 to now would be 22 years.
So 84
versus
to 2002.
86 to 2002. What, no, 80. What was it? 82?
82,
Because-
83.
So 82 to 2002 would 20 years. Yeah.
So we're
You're just
right
past
in
that.
the middle.
Yeah.
we're just getting over the hump.
wow.
It's weird
Interesting.
stuff. that I
Very
learned
weird.
about.
Also, I thought He-Man was less broy than I thought he would be as well. And Beastman is exactly what I thought he would be. I just didn't think he would be like the protector of someone. I thought he would kind of just be this rogue agent of sorts. And then hopefully Evil Lynn will turn back to the good side, which I already kind of mentioned before.
Oh, Evil Lynn.
Yeah, one thing. Let's see. I have a couple questions. I'm seeing what the rest
Before
of the
you
notes
pass,
are.
I'm just curious because I
You're
did
good.
Evil Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that name? You know how all the names are punny
Mm-hmm.
and like merman or whatever. What do you think of Evil Lynn, if that makes sense? Is it just Evil Lynn or?
I don't know.
Because
Like-
it was like relatively recently that I realized, oh, her real name is Evelyn.
Yeah, Evelyn
Mm.
Powers.
I never put that together when I was a kid. Like it was just Evil
Well, it was
Lynn.
never-
I
said,
already
though.
knew that.
I know, but like it's actually right there,
Oh.
like Evelyn. Like
yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I didn't never clicked until like a couple of years ago.
Click
I
I
was
think
wondering
just
if it
because
clicked with
my
you.
dad did a lot of those growing up, like IP freely and all those other things. Like I think
Seymour
it
Butts.
makes sense. Yeah, Seymour Butts. Like I think it's just ingrained in me at this point.
I mean,
yeah.
MOTU character names in general are pretty much like what it says on the tin. Merman,
Yeah.
Beastman,
Right.
Buzz Off,
Triclops.
Triclops,
Yeah.
Clawful, like
Mhm.
Well, Evil Lynn's name
Roboto.
originally though was Sultra. 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 And that got
Tra-tra.
changed at some point into Evil Lynn. So
Huh.
I would assume maybe they didn't know how parents would react to a Sultra action. And she was supposed to look like Sophia Loren. So if you look at the original action figure and compare her to some of Sophia Loren's younger photos, you can see it for sure. So
Ultra sultry.
Okay, we actually already answered my last question. It was about toys that were, or like characters that weren't in the original shows that were just toy variants and they were made for this show, but we already covered that.
like Wondar and Vicor are both part of that now too. I don't think when we covered it, we talked about that like when we talked about the first episode. I don't know if we mentioned that. Not like this is the first animated appearance of Wondor and Vicor, and we did talk about the Eternia playset. Scareglow's first animated appearance.
Spiker was in Filmation. Yeah, he looked wonky. No, I was thinking Spiker in the beginning.
I know.
Where he was being arrested.
Yeah.
Blast Attack we talked about. I think that the dinosaur that King Grayskull is riding is Binotops, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't know that it was by
The Triceratops.
What's the one that the sorceress lady is riding? The feathery one.
They had a toy that was supposed to come out that was there was a Tyrannosaurus Rex, but it had like a tech on it, and didn't it open? Didn't the chest open too with a gun in it?
Yeah.
Or was that And then there was a pterodactyl that also, but like I don't know if that was actually it or
they
just
start
a tease.
coming out with dinosaurs. I'm screwed.
Oh, you know
ever
what?
for this.
We didn't talk
'Cause
about
I
was
want
the
them.
movie reference in this first part, which was the those crappy disc things they were flying around on during the hunt. That was from the original motion picture.
Oh, cool. I was wondering if that was a callback to something. Oh my god, I need it.
If I cut out, well, I'll just do it.
Huh?
Yeah, Vinatops was 87. I think Brick did something that froze him. He's frozen.
Oh no.
Oh, he said
Ruh-roh.
that's what he meant. He said if I cut out, I did something. So
Oh.
I think he'll be back. But yeah, this is
Or not.
Vinatops.
There he is.
Was this not
He
the
lives.
what King Grayskull was riding? Is this?
Oh, I was
no.
thinking it was a. Sorry, I thought it was a Triceratops, but no. that was what I did.
Tricyclopods.
That's Gigantosaurus, isn't it?
Tyrannosaurus Rex. Sorry.
Isn't that Gigantosaurus? That one's the one that never got released.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But this one came out. I'm trying to click.
I
and
just
do
want the
stuff.
feathery one.
I don't think that
one
one was an actual
yeah,
toy.
that one's never.
Oh,
come
did
out.
that have feathers? I don't even remember. I just thought it was a regular
Yeah,
Tyrannosaurus.
it's like a chicken dinosaur. You know.
Yeah,
like,
which is how
allegedly
they were.
really
They
were.
had feathers. Fun
Allegedly.
fact. Allegedly.
Until I see a dinosaur, I'm not convinced any of it's real.
Yeah.
Fake news. This
So we
thing? Is that
talked-
what you're gonna do?
Yes. We talked about, Tila being upset by the betrayal of not knowing Adam's secret identity as He-Man. One thing that I didn't really get in relation to that, that I don't know if I just didn't connect the dots or something, but I didn't understand why she didn't want to tell him when they were in Preternia about the magic leaving Eternia and why they needed the sword. She purposely didn't want to tell him that, which she does mention how she doesn't want him to feel bad because he can't do anything, but it seemed like there was more to it that I wasn't quite connecting the dots, because I was like, girl, just tell him. Why not tell him what you're doing? So I don't know. I was curious what you guys thought of that.
I'm just spitballing here. This isn't what I hadn't thought about it, so I haven't formed a theory on it, but this is the first thing that came to mind. Maybe it's a little bit of a petty revenge kind of thing. You kept your secret from me so long, so I'm going to keep this secret from you. It's possible.
I can relate.
I don't know. What's that?
Said I can relate.
Oh.
I took it that she knew, even though technically he's dead and there's no coming back from that. I also took it that she actually does know He-Man and Adam pretty well. Another reason the betrayal would sting. And I think the way I took it was she knows if she says something, he's going to try to do something to try to come back with them.
Yeah,
And I think it's almost like the
occurred to me
Buffy
too.
Summers. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer all the way through. But, she does a big sacrifice and they bring her back. And she spends half of the season being miserable because she was happy dead. And she was in a pleasant place, and then they brought her back to kill vampires and monsters again. And it's relevant because who is the voice of Tila in this particular version? Sarah Michelle Gellar, who was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I went a meta place with it because that's also when the Buffy show completely sort of started sucking, was when they killed her and brought her back.
Well, because Buffy was miserable and it made the viewers miserable.
Yeah,
because
right.
Buffy was a miserable.
That was a rough season, and when she says that, it made perfect sense, and you're like, oh, okay, but it didn't get unmiserable after that.
No, it didn't.
But
unmiserable.
So for me, there was a meta side of it where she knows him well enough that she knows. Well, that's not the meta part, but the meta part was it's Sarah Michelle Gellar, who's character-wise, as Buffy, has some experience with that. So I sort of imprinted on that. But I also think it works the way, and all the other ways. I think that's why it's nice that it's ambivalent and ambiguous as to what her intent in keeping it back is, because I think each viewer is given the ability there to make up their own decision as to why she makes that decision.
I was totally with you too, Allison. That was where my brain went to, was the idea of like a hero who is one to every generation. Like it's totally there, right? It's like, oh, there's a wonder, there's a king. And they finally made it to peace. But also there's that like, yeah, I don't want him to have to come back. I don't want him to feel guilty, like, you know, and just have to like, oh no, everything's horrible back there. Like, and or maybe feel like he wasn't much of a champion because it actually didn't fix anything, you know, like, so that is kind of where I took it. But I think people are complex. It could have been some of that pettiness too. And Johnny, you're 100% right. I was fishing for it. It's totally that one.
It could be all the flavors of the wind. It could be like a bag of Skittles as far as why she does it. It's all true. Hugh Han Solo. It's all true. All of it.
Yeah. It makes me curious, like, what if Teela called down the power? Because they've obviously shown that anybody who holds the sword basically can do it, right? Because otherwise Skeletor would not be able to do the by the power of Grayskull and become Skelegod. So I'm curious what it like. Would Teela just be a red-haired She-Ra if she called down?
I should be Red Sonja.
It does. I mean, and this is a sort of like a bigger question I have. Does it actually work that way where anyone can call down the power? Because we've never gotten an actual, you know, like we see Skeletor try to do it, and like evil. And we've seen other people try to do it, and it doesn't quite work the same way. Like, so I would be curious, especially, but also because of Teela, I don't know. Like, that's an interesting question.
I wasn't sure either, but to couple it maybe with what happens in the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe CGI show, there is a little bit of that notion.
Yeah.
And like, if I go back to episode 1, that's a big revelation that Skeletor, he realizes. That's why he, like, this whole time, he didn't realize that, the actual power is inside that. Like what do they call it? The something of knowledge? What was Castle Grayskull actually hiding? It was an illusion that the old
the Hall of Wisdom.
The Hall of Wisdom. And so, like they said, they hid all of the secrets of the universe there. And so, like, and my sense is that, like, it's a big secret, but you can do that and you can access it. And I think that's why that the notion of, like, when we look at the character of who Adam is important, because they really wanted to choose the right person, I think, to, like, wield that. And that was like a big, like, which again makes a lot more sense as to why they want to keep it secret. They don't want anyone to know, not just that it's Adam, but that, like, it's actually a power that can be drawn on, you know, that other people can take that power away, I think. So I don't know, that's how I was kind of looking at it. And again, same goes for well, no, I mean, just based on this thing, if we were seeing that, like, there was a past sorceress, right, in King Grayskull's partner, the one who doesn't speak English or whatever, it raises all sorts of questions as to, like, how does this stuff work? If there were past champions, were there past, I mean, there were past sorcerers too that played that role. So lots of cool stuff. I don't know. To me, it just opened up this world to, like, so much possibility of storytelling. And I was genuinely bummed and continue to be bummed that it didn't hit with fans in a big way, because I feel like there was so much potential here to, like, give us Eternian stories, like, forever. Like, let's talk about other champions. Let's talk about other sorcerers and all their bad guys, you know, like they hinted at Hero. Like, we could have actually just spent time with Hero, like we were supposed to in the original line, because Hero was supposed to take over for He-Man to be the new center of the toy line after the original toy line ended. So like, anyway, there's a lot of reasons why I was kind of like disappointed by the fan response, and you can't force people to like things, which is fine.
No,
I just still stand by that it didn't quite have its fair shake. But
yeah, it's hard when people cancel something before it even comes out. Also, just because I wasn't here doesn't mean I didn't hear you, Allison.
I know. I
Allison
stopped.
didn't say anything.
I'm just
She said
saying.
nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped.
It's okay. All good.
You
I'm
haven't figured
literally
it
gonna
out
watch
from
all the episodes
toys.
tomorrow, so it's
Well,
fine.
can we do that thing where you tell us what you think might
Yeah,
happen?
what are your predictions?
Allison literally said that Evil Lynn tries to wield the sword of power, so at some point that's gonna happen.
That sounds hot.
Sword of power, name of my toy.
Were there anything else that you think might happen? You were
Based
kind of
on
wondering about
what
He-Man.
Allison said.
No,
No,
just
no,
in
no,
general.
Just having seen
Oh,
this
in
first part.
general. Oh, well, I hope He-Man lives. Hope.
That's a good start.
Although I don't, if he, I feel like he has to. Like, there's a lot of fucking plot armor. I feel like he has to. If they pull a Game of Thrones,
Battle armor, some might say.
wouldn't miss him. Controversial take. Wouldn't miss him. But I highly doubt that's gonna happen. Clearly based on y'all's reactions and the chat's reactions, we're gonna find out more about Tila, which is my next questions that I have.
That was the first video. Sorry.
Yes. King Grayskull, aka Sadie Allstate. Clearly we're gonna find out more about Tila and why she glows and has the 3 blue lines on her head, and what that's all about, and her destiny. Hopefully, find out more. I hope she kicks names and takes ass. I'm curious if she has some kind of magical abilities, might be related to sorceress. Might be sorceress and Man-at-Arms daughter at this point, based on a lot of context clues. Or we might find out her parents, her real parents, essentially. I don't know, like in terms of how they like defeat Skeletor and like get it back. I don't know. That's something I can't really predict. I don't know.
I'll say you're in for a wild ride, and I think you're gonna dig it.
I'm excited. I've heard a lot of people say that they really like season 2, which just watching season 1, I'm like in my head, because it's been so like women femme character focused, I'm like, do they only like season 2 because He-Man comes back and Skelly come back? Part two.
Revolution is technically season 2. It's weird because they gave them different names.
Okay, Johnny.
In different countries too, I think it was treated as a season 2.
Yeah.
It literally says on IMDb season 1 and season 2. So
Does it really? Oh, well then.
yes, it does.
But on
Then
Netflix here in the United States, it says part 1, part 2.
Yes. So
what I will say about
Oh,
that
those
concern about the
bastards.
dudes or whatever, like, oh, it's the one thing I will say to sort of ease that, even it's a cohesive story. The entire series is a cohesive story.
yeah.
So rest assured, even if that were to happen, it's still the story is a satisfying ending. I mean,
Yes,
I wanted
Enzo,
more.
I'm
obviously,
going to
but
watch it. I'm gonna watch it
it'll be-
tomorrow.
So I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, don't go into it afraid of that, because even if that were to happen, the story itself is cohesive and works, and
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah, I know that, and I definitely figured that out with the
Motherboard.
cliffhanger.
Motherboard.
And like clearly, I have mommy motherboard to look forward to, which I'm excited. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, clearly, like, well, I hope Skelly's gonna get defeated. And yeah, that's something that Ted said too about Revolution, that these 5 episodes are gonna be like a whole season. It's not gonna be like 2 parts again.
Bums me out because that means it's short.
Yeah, it's just 5 episodes.
It's half this.
He said it.
Yeah.
He said it plays together like a movie, kind of like the first 5 episodes of She-Ra does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, I would love for a way to Orko to return. Like somehow he didn't die and just part of his clothes got chopped off in the portal thing. And he's just stuck in Subeternia.
With like a bare midriff or something.
Or just part of his clothes cut off. He has a crop top now.
Yeah, he has a crop now.
No. I don't know. Who knows what's under there? Scandalous. Oh my.
Ooh,
I would love for Orko to come back somehow because I miss him. I hope Cringer is in it more. Love Cringer, of course. I mean, I would love for a way for King Grayskull to be back, but I don't see how that could be a thing because he's not going to leave Preternia. Yeah, maybe at the beginning. I don't know. They're already out of there, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's most of my.
I don't see any reason why they couldn't repair Roboto. Maybe we'll
get
Roboto back.
Yeah, maybe. He was funny, especially during the fights when he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry." So polite. Doesn't want to kill anyone. Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff.
I think my other questions you guys know the answers to, which is about Tila. So I can't really ask them that. And I can't ask you that because clearly y'all know.
You can ask them. It'd be fun to hear them.
You can ask us. The answer might just be watch and find out.
Well, it's what we just talked about, like what she is
okay.
destined to be. Why was Sorceress glad to see her?
Mm-hmm.
So
Watch
on
and
and
find
so
out.
on. Yes, exactly why I'm
those
not
that you
asking,
said
Jonathan.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Let's geek the F out of here. It is.
Wait, are you doing
3
any of your
hours.
normal Geek the F outs? Like, you're not doing like spoilers without context or anything like that?
No, not this episode.
Can I
No,
offer
we're good.
one
Yeah, sure.
for Kayla?
Wait. If that's what they said.
No. I know you said that you were going to
okay.
do that next time.
Oh,
This is a
okay.
spoiler without
Context.
For part 2?
That's all.
For part 2. Someone answer me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What? Is it?
Allegedly.
So either she's going to turn into a Hulk, or someone who's voiced the Hulk is going to come in, but I don't think I saw that in the credits. Or my imaginary beard. All right. Yeah, I think, is anyone else, any other thoughts?
I can't think of anything that we didn't already talk about.
Yeah,
It was
and
good.
we'll
Watch it.
be talking about part 2 on Monday with these 2 lovely humans, in addition to Michael from Toy Habits and Vector, and possibly Toy Sorceress as well. We'll see, depending on how her housing stuff plays out. She's dealing with a lot right now. Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. Same time, same place. Oh no, Star. You're gonna have to watch the replay. I'm so sorry. Got a whole 3 hours, but it's great. Honestly, it was like
everything.
non-stop goodness. so much goodness. Like there was not a dull moment this whole show. It was great. It was like a solid discussion. I learned so much. So much. I think overall I will say love this show so far. Can't wait to watch part 2. Don't know why I haven't watched it sooner. Yeah, very excited.
I think you should wait till after Sunday because you might be tempted to talk about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh.
Yeah.
You mean after Allison's stream?
Yeah, because we should.
Honestly, probably. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because you'll have thoughts, and I will have thoughts, and it'll be really hard for us to not talk about those thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
You already saw
Sounds
Allison today.
I know, it was really hard. I did really well. Really well.
So yeah, what's
Sorry.
happening on Sunday? We are going on Allison's channel on Sunday to color MOTU. My book is not.
Yes, we are.
I thought my book
from
was
Revelations even.
my book's somewhere. We're doing the Tila and Andra picture, right? Is that what we
That is
decided?
accurate.
I have to find that.
So it's from Revelation. I haven't seen.
Yeah, there's a color. Yeah, it's a coloring book.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
I thought we ordered from Amazon, but we all know Amazon is having
Be
issues right
jealous, Brick. Be so jealous.
So yeah, and I've got it close because Black Phoenix and I are doing a buddy color in here, right there. It's almost done. I need to do the sword and put some more shading in the skin, but we'll be doing Sunday morning, 11 a.m. on my channel. Johnny and Kayla will be there, and we'll be doing Tila and Andra. Gonna get as much done as we can.
Also, it's like my peak favorite Tila, so that's great. I guess I'm gonna have to go home and get some coloring supplies.
You probably should, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing I forgot.
Ooh, that's cool art.
Yeah, it's
That's cool.
So,
Not figure out now, but if on Sunday you could tell us who the artist was, if it lists, that would be cool.
It doesn't. I don't know that it names the artist in here, and that's one of the problems with a lot of these. I was about to say corporate book. Oh, it says. Wait, I apologize. Illustrated by Diego Vasberg. So, I do have the link in my community tab. I believe I have a link for Sunday. The problem is in most parts of the country, Amazon's not going to get it to you in time since most of their hubs are in. Like, none of my stuff from Amazon that I've ordered the last week and a half will be here until next week because our hub we have one place here open, and it's anyway, snow.
It's only $11 on Amazon. I just put a link to it.
Yeah,
in the chat,
so if you're in a place where Amazon can get it,
We don't get anything from that link.
Grab it and color it. If not, I do know that some Targets still have it. If you have a Barnes and Noble, they'll probably have it closer to the $14.99 cover price. So anyway, there's some options if you want to join us for that. And,
I'm excited.
Brick, if you decide you want to join us on Sunday,
make it a 4-way.
Yeah, or even if you just want to color at home at your desk with us or whatever, let me know. I have a scan of it. I can't
be there in spirit.
I can't distribute a scan for something commercially available the same way I can for an old coloring book, but I could get you my scan that I use to plot out coloring schemes. So I could do that for you. If you want to join us. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm very much looking forward to that. It is a weekend of MOTU. And then we'll be talking about part 2 Monday night, same time, same place. And then Brick, do you want to tell everyone what you got coming up?
Sure. Well, tomorrow I will probably stop by the clubhouse and hope to see other folks there. That's over on Ostradamus.
Hopefully it'll be post Niners win.
That's a sports thing. And then I'm there.
Come on, Brick.
There's the chance
we're in the
that
playoffs.
I might jump onto Mega J. I might jump onto Mega J Retro in a little bit. on Sunday, every Sunday, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, I do a thing called the Brick Something News. And this Sunday, I'll be joined by Yoko McCann, Living La Vida Yoko / The Fallen Fett.
Love her.
And so I'm excited for that.
A previous guest of
Cool.
ours several times. She's the best. Big fan. Allison, do you have anything else coming up besides Sunday? Want to double check that.
Between now and then, I've been releasing old videos of Kenner catalogs. I believe tomorrow. Yep, tomorrow 10 a.m. My very battered Superpowers toy catalog booklet will go live with all the toys from the booklet. It's just scanned. You'll see how. I mean, it's really old. It came in a lot about 10 years ago. But that goes up, and I've got almost all of the vintage Star Wars stuff up.
Nice.
So, and I've got some strawberry shortcake and some of the Pink Isle stuff coming. Also, I do have on January 31st. I want to just plug it. I'm doing Secrets of Castle Grayskull from concept to kids
birthday. Stuff. What?
So yeah. And it has a little bit of the history of Castle Grayskull before filmation, and I have taken the old kid stuff record from the 80s, which has a different lore for MOTU and Castle Grayskull. Matt has read it very dramatically for me. So that's at the end of the video where he does it 80s kids book style. So, and I even
is that his first kind of thing on your channel? Is that the first thing that he's been willing to do?
Yeah, it's the first.
Yay!
You're popping his cherry.
Yeah, well, and there are 3 different kid stuff books from MOTU that none of the pages were colored in the original. It's just black and white line art. So I've colored them all. He did the voice for all 3 of them. So I'll be releasing those over the next couple of months. I don't want to drop them all at once. But yeah, so I've got those coming up, and I even found a way to get the original sound. You may now turn the page in your booklet, and it's a little special Quasar sounding thing. So yeah, so that's exciting. And sometime my Death Sparrow with Ken interview will go up if we can keep power long enough for me to do the edits I need on my computer. Every time I go into edit that sequence for the video, the power dies. So
of course,
universe is like, not today, Death Sparrow, not today.
Not today, Satan.
Awesome. Retrograde.
Yeah,
I forgot. Well, and you know how it is. Go. Sorry, the boyfriend.
Go. Can't forget the boyfriend
channel. I know. On Sunday at 2:05 over on the Highly Articulated channel, we'll be doing a new episode of Monkey Business AWOC about AWOC.
Ooh. So fun. Yes, internet's favorite toy tuber boyfriends. Thanks everyone for joining. Yeah.
Right after not looking.
That makes it everyone. Yeah, sure. Thanks everyone for joining us. Make sure to smack that like, smack that subscribe, smack that bell icon. You can play the music.
No, because you're.
Just kidding. Smack that like, smack that bell icon, smack that subscribe, and make sure to do so for Brick Something and Allison Troy, Retro Toy Princess. All their stuff you can find below, and yeah, make sure to check out their channels. And if you want to follow us on social media, our handle is at GTFO channel. If you want to email us, our email is channelgtfo@gmail.com. Yeah, we'll see y'all either on Allison's on Sunday or on our channel on Monday.
Hopefully both.
Yeah, hopefully both.
Yes,
you should come. Thanks for geeking the F out with us. Dang it, now it's not doing it since I'm not on the screen.